Hey everyone, welcome to Simplilearn. Today, we will be learning the Project Management fill course. We will begin this video by talking about what project management is, project planning, how can it be done using Excel, cost, quality, communication and other forms of management, the best project managing tools, how you can prepare for the PMP exam, the role of a project manager, interview questions, and much more. By the time we are done, you'll be well versed with some of the most important concepts in project management. For this training with me, we have our specialists Chandra MR and Ishan. Together, they will take you through these different topics. So, let's start by answering our first question. What is project management? So before we begin, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you can never miss an update from Simplilearn.
Hi, welcome to Project Management tutorial from Simplilearn. I am Chandra MR, a professional consultant and coach in best practices related to project management and IT service management. Today, as part of this tutorial, we are going to learn the basic understanding about the project management and the required knowledge for a project manager to become successful in managing projects. So as part of this tutorial, we are going to look at what is project management, what is project, components of project management, project life cycle, key focus areas in project management, job roles in project management, and project management certifications. So what is project management? Now, as defined in PMI's PMBOK, project management is application of knowledge, skills, tools and techniques to project activities to meet project requirements. So every project will have an objective to accomplish. Similarly, the objective of project management is to make the final deliverables in a finite time and budget. This involves having clear understanding about the deliverables of the project, required resources for the project, resource in terms of human resources, technical resources, financial resources, etc. Project manager should have a full picture of those aspects. We can call it project manager should have a full view about a project and what is that this project has to accomplish. That objective should be clear. So as part of project management, the 6 constraints which project managers should look at are scope, time, quality, cost, risk and resources. So each of these areas has very important role to play in project management. The clarity in scope, the clarity in terms of schedule within which the project has to be delivered, the cost, what it incurs to that particular project. Once it is finalized, one cannot vary, one cannot change without any proper approvals. Similar to that, we have quality management specifications what are defined. Project output will be accordingly achieved. Risk. Every project is taken up for a specific reason by organization. So organization should assess the risk associated with the project. And similarly, as project progresses, various different risks has to be identified, like risk related to project management, risk related to technology area, risk related to resources, risk related to financial things. So broadly, risk management plays a very important role. So there will be something called contingency reserve kept for a identified risk above the cost what is estimated for its deliverables from the project. So every project require resources. Resources may be in terms of human resources, financial resources, technology resources, environmental resources. So all these resources are used to produce the output of the project. So these resources has to be managed with the sufficient optimization and standardizations required. Now let us understand the definition of a project. So what is a project? PMI defines a project as a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service or result. The temporary nature of a project indicates that a project has a definite beginning and end. So when I say product, unique product, it means every output, it may be similar products you are producing with the same features and functionality. But the output of every project is unique because it is unique in terms of all the 6 constraints what we just discussed now. Now when I say product, it is very easy for us to visualize. It may be a desktop, it may be a laptop, it may be a car, it may be a machine, etc. But how do I visualize a service? Now project's output is a service. Now it's about building a capability. A project, through a project, a capability can be built to ensure services can be provided. That's what the output of project is, service. For example, if I think about a taxi services, for providing a taxi services, I need a mobile app, I need taxi, I need a server, I need a data center. So all these are various different products and services. Here service example can be internet service. So combination of all the services and products builds the capability for an organizations who can provide the taxi services. So building that capability, we say it is an output of a particular project which is called service. Similarly, results can be improvement of something, improvement in customer satisfaction, increase in some specific objectives or specific results needs to be achieved in performance perspective. So output of every project will be unique product or a service or a result. This we need to clearly understand. So when we say there is a definite beginning and end, every project starts at a certain point in time and ends at certain point in time. So it has a definite beginning and end. That is the reason it is temporary in nature. It is not an ongoing business activity, right? So every project will have a life cycle, a beginning and end. So when it starts till end, until the result or a service or a product which comes as an output of a project life cycle is not ended. So interestingly, in a product life cycle or in a service life cycle, you come across many project life cycles. So one project life cycle means one project is initiated to introduce a product or services. Next project or initiated would be to enhance the capability of a service or a product. Next project initiated after some time is to optimize something. Similarly, at the end of the product life cycle, project is initiated to retire that product or services. So in a given product life cycle, there may be multiple project life cycle. So what is involved in the project life cycle? It involves 5 areas, 5 groups we can call it as. So initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and closure. So when I say initiation, it's all about understanding what is project, giving the basic understanding of the project, collating the details and having key stakeholders identified. Once that is done, one will move towards planning. So here in the initiation, it is very clearly one has to understand is project is worthwhile of doing. So one has to check the feasibility, one has to measure that particular investment is making sense and then confirm, yes, it makes sense to invest. Now next, planning. As we have a basic understanding of, yes, this project has to be done and a discussion with the key stakeholders have happened, now that moves towards planning. Now in planning, one will understand the project in entirety. If it is a waterfall approach, one has to have a clear articulation of entire project, a comprehensive details, holistic approach. Now if you're going in a project in a agile way of approach, now in this planning you may have a big skeleton. As you go in each of the iteration, you may go deep dive into detailed planning if it is an agile approach. So planning provides you the clear insight towards what needs to be done in this project, how it has to be done, and what are the results which can be achieved out of that particular project. So this involves making that a clear blueprint of an project objectives, what we are supposed to achieve. So this will become a reference point throughout the project life cycle. Then execution. As you have a blueprint of the project, as the direction of that project is set, detailing of the project has been made, one will go ahead and execute and implementing it. So execution phase involves the allocation of resources and making the deliverables as required. You acquire resources, you configure a resource, you ensure right resources are acquired. If it is human resource, one has to educate that human resource with the project required knowledge or details, or one has to provide that assignment in such a way that skills of that individuals what they should have is acquired by those individuals so that deliverables can happen and they needs to be managed. The entire team needs to be managed. For that a clear structure has to be created. Similarly, when you do technology resource perspective, those components has to be tested, configured, then integrated, again tested for and check the performances. So collective action of this results in a deliverable during the execution. So as the deliverables are happening in the execution, it is quite obvious project manager has to monitor, review, control that particular deliverable and also the processes, tools, resources used during the project, even those needs to be monitored so that they are complying to the defined processes. So during monitoring, there may be a deviation one can found. During monitoring, there may be the project is running the way it is required. So in this monitoring phase, it involves an action from project manager to monitor and control the work of the project. So comparing with the blueprint of plan, what is accomplished, what is created during the planning phase of this project, and as the execution happens, monitoring and control is monitoring it and checking is that activities what is being done is according to the plan or not. Similarly, the deliverables which comes as an output of a project are tested thoroughly, whether those have a specific features and functionality and are they functioning the way it is required. Now project has to be delivered to the scope what is defined. It should not go beyond that or below that. Similarly, the schedule what is made for the project, within that schedule project deliverables needs to be accomplished within the cost what is budgeted for the project. So during the project, project manager may find there are certain deviations which are occurred, there are additional challenges which has come in. So for this reason, one has to ensure continued monitoring as the execution happens and identify those deviation and ensure whenever there is a deviation there is a correction. Whenever there is an additional things coming in, that needs to be considered carefully whether that need to be involved as part of this deliverable or should be taken it separately. So this requires a lot of conversation with all the stakeholders of the project during the entire project life cycle, especially during planning, execution, monitoring and control, since they are not the one which is happening in sequence. So planning can also come back again where there is something which you may require to modify. So you may require to have a change in the blueprint itself by adding that new change which is coming in. So you go back to planning. So planning, execution, monitoring and control are going hand in hand so that project deliverables are happening as needed. Similarly, all the process, work instructions, all those templates what is given are used. One is complying to those requirement. It is very important. And project is done within the scope, schedule and time and the quality metrics defined. Then as the completion of the project happens, as the monitoring and control says, yes, deliverable has happened according to the requirement, then the project moves to the closure. The closure may be closure of a specific project phase, a milestone deliverable or a phasal deliverable, or it can be a deliverable at the end of the project, which is the ultimate deliverable. So processes in closing has to be triggered whenever there is an end of the phase, whenever there is a deliverable to conclude, and also at the end of the project to conclude the entire project. So during the closure, one has to ensure capturing all the details in terms of what is accomplished against what is defined, what went wrong, what went well, what is the learning one has to take to the next level or to next phase or to the next project. And at the same time, a sign off has to be obtained formally and everything should be summarized and have a good handshake with the project stakeholder, mainly a business or customer. And also disseminating of team means you will dismantle the entire team and send them back to their specific units or specialization, and they may get assigned to new project, or if it is a functional they can go back to their functions to do their functional activities. So that was about entire project life cycle what happens. Now while doing this, I mentioned there are 6 constraints, that is scope, schedule, cost, quality, risk and resources. So keeping these in mind, one has to ensure project is successful in all aspects. So to become successful, there are few key areas which has to be looked at. So first 6 key areas are scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources and stakeholders. Now let us look at the scope. What does scope means? Scope is about what needs to be delivered. What is in scope? What is out of the scope? So this refers to all those deliverable scope, all those activity scope. Basically we speak about 2 things. One is product scope and project scope. Product scope is all about ensuring the features, functionality of products are well defined and understood and signed off. And while delivering that product, that is tested against those defined features and functionalities. Whereas project scope focus on all the activities needs to be done, all those templates which has to be used, all the process which has to be complied with, all that skills which is required to be applied. So it is going as defined. So by doing this activities which is defined as part of project scope, the result, the deliverable will come out, which will be in line with the deliverables, features and functionality, which is defined as part of product scope. It is very important to ensure entire projects happens within this particular scope. There should not be any deviations from this. Schedule perspective, for that specifications what we have defined for a product and project. So these needs to be done in a specific point in time, means in a specific schedule. There will be start time, end time, right? So one has to plan how long a project would take and what are the deliverables should happen in what sequence, what activities are required to accomplish this. So all these needs to be understood. So while performing the schedule management, one has to look at a specific deliverable at a specific point in time by applying a specific set of activities required. So this will tell you the duration of the project, This will provide you the sequence of project. This will also help you to understand the dependency between one task to another task. This will also help you to understand how the deliverables happening in what sequence, which helps in prioritizing your deliverables. Third is cost. So as we know, to do any project, it is very essential to ensure project happens within that budget. So project cost is estimated initially, then that estimated cost will be checked in terms of is the assumptions, considerations are right or wrong, is that really so much of monetary resources are required for the project, and then after understanding the justification and obtaining the clarity, monetary resources are allocated and confirmed, approved, then it will become a budget. That will be a cost baseline. So these estimation, allocation of budget, once it happens, that will become a base, and any deviations from that cannot happen so easily. So any deviations because of additional of scope, that can be handled through change management, but idealistic scenario, the cost should not escalate or come down. Organization can also set certain tolerances at the project level, considering various different scenarios, like scenario of risks, scenario of something which deviated from the deliverable. So to what extent it can deviate, that tolerance will also be set at the economic or monetary value perspective. That is about cost. Now quality, as we know, quality is a very important area which ensures the project is delivered in time with all the specifications defined by using all the methods, means by following all the processes, work instructions, templates, and delivering as needed, where it enables the project to monitor it easily. So basically the requirement of compliance and standardization and optimization is to ensure everyone follows the same steps to do the activity. So what quality management focus is to ensure the intended objectives of a project are achieved. Already there is a definition done in terms of various different practices or processes needs to be followed. Similarly, specification of each of the products are defined, and from that there should not be any deviation. So quality management should focus on ensuring those activities are done as defined, those deliverables are done according to the specifications what is defined. It is very important that way. So for that there is a layer of quality management, there should be a layer of quality management where auditing or control activities are initiated periodically so that any deviations can be seen easily. And remember, a project manager cannot become part of quality management. Like project manager cannot audit. Project manager should have a team or take the help of a team who can able to do. Mostly the one who is not part of the project is always better. Resources. Now as I mentioned earlier, every project needs resources. It may be human resources, it may be technology resources, it may be any other resources which are required to do the project. So organization acquires resources, configured and then deployed. For example, in a project, you acquire a server, you configure a server, you deploy a server. Technology resource. Human resource is onboarded, recruited, project induction is given. Then at the same time, the skills and capabilities of individuals are according to the requirement of project. That needs to be ensured. And what needs to be delivered and how it has to be delivered should be clear to the particular human resource. So looking at all the aspects of resources to acquire, to build and manage, it is very important to look at the resource management. So this will help in carrying out a specific task in the project in the best possible manner. So interestingly, when I say human resource, always there is a possibility that a conflict can occur. So when I say conflict of interest maybe in terms of what that individuals has to do, conflict in terms of the preferences, in terms of solutions, what they're looking at, conflict in terms of using resources, different opinions, different preferences, various reasons conflict can come across. So it is very important to project manager to understand this dynamics of human resources and manage those conflicts. Project manager cannot shy away from handling conflicts. Project manager has to hone and resolve those conflicts in the favor of project, not in the favor of any individuals. So there are various techniques to look at resolving conflicts. So that is like compromising, problem solving, smoothing, accommodating. So whichever helps for that project scenario, for the project objectives, that needs to be applied. That technique has to be taken up. So here the resolution is not at the specific individual's preference. It is with the objective of whether projects has any impact. What kind of impact? Positive or negative? If it is negative, no, that's not the direction. The direction should be ensuring project gets that value through this conflict resolution. So project manager should own it. It's an accountability of a project manager. Then as the human resources are acquired, there are 5 stages. Team dynamics are involved. So one has to bring them, then educate them about a project. As the education on the project happens, one has to go and do the job on floor. That needs to be observed. Means one has to manage by looking at it, and any corrections needs to be done. That needs to be guided. So it is very dynamic thing when it comes to human resources. Similarly, in technology resources, standardization. There is no ambiguity as such. But right resources with the right configurations should be acquired. That is very important. The next, stakeholders. So who can be stakeholders? Every project will have a stakeholder who are internal and external to the project. So the internal stakeholders are those who are part of the project, who are part of the organization, who are part of the customer organization, or part of supplier organization, a computation to my business, means my organization's business. All these we can call it as a stakeholders. Now every stakeholders will have a specific interest, a power, an ability to influence. Now through their position, through their distance from the project, they will get impacted. At the same time, they will also impact the project. Similarly, they influence and they get influenced because of the project. So a project manager should identify all the stakeholders and understand this. What is the kind of stakeholder is this in terms of power, in terms of legitimacy, in terms of influence, in terms of impact? After understanding that, there should be a strategy for handling the stakeholders. How am I going to engage with these stakeholders? It is very important. And accordingly, the engagement should happen, and then stakeholder engagement should resolve in the favor of projects again. So if it is a customer should get the inputs required through review or periodic updates and the engagement required with the customer, so that customer is having up-to-date information about the project. If it is a team, continued monitoring and control and ensuring team delivers the results what is required. So focus of a stakeholder should be in such a way that your strategy should enable project to become successful and get a proper response from the stakeholder, means a supporting engagement. So next few key focus areas to mention is communication, risk, procurement, critical success factors, deliverables, and work breakdown. So this list is not exhaustive. As we deep dive into project, I think you can just keep listing the key focus areas more than this, but whatever we have indicated are the minimum which needs to be looked at. So when I say communication is basically a conversation, exchange of message which happens between two entities. Now whenever we communicate, it is necessary to understand that it has to happen with two individuals or two entities. There should be sender, there should be receiver. In the absence of receiver, if sending is happening, that communication doesn't make any sense. There should be a receiver and there should be an acknowledgement from the receiver. Now this is one of the most ignored area in many of the projects. Even the communication happens more often, more frequently. But what people face difficulty in realizing that as they communicate generally, informally, formally, they just take those for granted. Now when you identify the stakeholder, one has to understand what is the communication requirement for those stakeholders. What is that communication? Why is that communication? What is the content of that communication? How frequently we should do that interactions or communications? Intent of that particular communication. What is the expected action or response from that communication? All this needs to be very, very clear, and this can be articulated. It has to be articulated. So when it is articulated, once there is a picture in terms of what kind of communication has to happen, it is quite obvious there should not be any deviation from the agreed communications requirements. And whenever there is a need of change to the communication requirements from the stakeholders, that needs to be updated. For this, one has to have a stakeholders identified. So stakeholder management and communication are very closely linked and associated. Engagement with the stakeholder will become successful with an effective communication approaches. Next is risk. So every project which is undertaken by organization, that will have certain amount of risk which organization will evaluate. Similarly, within the project life cycle, lot of risk comes up which would have certain impact to the project. Now risk refers to, by definition, an uncertain event. It has an uncertainty, an event which is uncertain, and when it occurs, it will have an impact on the project positively or negatively. Now, current scenario in everywhere the projects, what you observe closely, people tend to look at the risk which are threats, that is negative only, but they fail to recognize the risks which are opportunities, the positive risks. So another gap which we see when do the risk management is that is done in the initial phase of the project. As the project is kicked off, someone will do the risk assessment, have a list of risk identified, but unfortunately there is no categorizations for that risk, and how is that going to impact the project, that is not clear. Thirdly, risk management or list of risk are created only once. It is not done repeatedly. So risk identification and analysis and assessment of that risk has to be done throughout the life cycle of a project. Reason being, the risk which looks as an high impact when project is initiated, as the project progresses, the impact levels will vary. Maybe in the mid of the project, the impact may be very high or low. So likewise, the impacts of the risk will vary throughout the project life cycle. It may be positive, it may be negative. So as you identify the stakeholder throughout the project life cycle, as I said, that is also a dynamic. I cannot just have a list of stakeholders and I keep it as it is. I need to update that also regularly. Risk identification, assessment and analysis should also be done regularly, periodically, so that one will have a clear understanding about, is that risk still valid? Is that risk is there still or not? What is the level of variations in terms of impact of the risks? So this clarity will be there so that organization or project manager can get ready to face those risks. If it is a negative risk, definitely you should have a mitigation or avoidance or acceptance, whatever the mitigation plan you have, to eliminate the negative impact of the risk when it occurs. If it is a positive risk, it's quite obvious one has to take the advantage of that. One has to enhance, exploit, share a positive risk so that organization is benefited. Further, procurement. So whenever a project is initiated, whenever a project is taken up, the organization who is doing the project cannot create everything, cannot develop everything in that project life cycle. So organization would take a decision, make a decision stating that some of the deliverables we make ourselves, some of the products we make ourselves, some of the products we purchase, some of the services we purchase. So to purchase, that has to happen from a specific supplier. You cannot go with every supplier. You should evaluate the suppliers, qualify the suppliers, and then select, onboard the supplier, and then get the services or products supplied by that particular supplier. So while doing this, one has to understand what type of contracting they need to enter with. So three types of contracts we speak basically. One is about cost plus contract, where cost is fully known to the project manager and to the organization. So apart from known cost, a fee will be paid to the supplier. Another one is fixed price, where project manager or the organization who is awarding that contract to a supplier will not know what is the cost. Instead, it is a fixed price. But important here is the scope of work needs to be clearly articulated and defined. Another type of contracting can be time and material, where the billing will happen based on the amount of time one is spent on that particular hire a resource or onboard a resource on a time and material basis, and what is that effort that resource has been put, based on that billing will happen. So three types of contracts depending on the different scenarios of the project will be signed with the contractor. However, before doing that, it is very essential to identify those suppliers, sign off with them, and monitor and manage them. So if deliverables are not there, it is very essential to look at the termination. One has to terminate. Otherwise, one has to ensure, instead of terminating, should be able to put some effort to educate them also, so that they come up to the mark, so project is benefited. So depending on what needs to be done, that call has to be taken on a regular basis. Then critical success factor. So for every project, there should be an articulation of critical success factor. So based on that, one can confirm, yes, project has achieved its objectives or project has not achieved its objectives. So critical success factor should be supported through the metrics, key performance indicators. So key performance indicators provide those metrics to say critical success factor is achieved. For example, if I want to become successful in an exam, critical success factor is scoring or passing the examination. Or let me say, to pass the examination, key performance indicator is scoring 60% and above. So critical success factor for me to get promoted is to pass in this particular exam. So to pass in this exam, minimum I should score is 60%. That is KPI. Passing in the exam, that is critical success factor. So how will I measure that success factor is KPI. So every project which it produces a specific product or services by using a specific resources, and each of these, the resources, the processes, the templates, the deliverables, all these needs to be measured on a continual basis. So there are critical success factors defined, and those are measured by defining KPIs to that critical success factors. So basically, critical success factor provides the insight towards what needs to be measured, and when you measure, what should be the focus. And to achieve those critical success factors, the indicator is key performance indicators. When you measure, yes, the moment you achieve that, your CSF is achieved. Next, deliverables. So deliverables are those which comes as an output of the project, right? It may be a product, it may be a service, it may be a result. So this refers to the output within the scope of a project. So there can be one or more deliverables within a single project. So these deliverables may be the items that are to be sent externally to a customer or a stakeholder. So every deliverable will have a defined scope, will have a defined specification. So those deliverables has to be measured, tested, and one has to confirm, yes, this deliverable is performing as we are intended to have the performance. Accordingly, the decision will happen. Should we accept this particular deliverable or not? If there is any deviation, that has to go back for correction. So that's the reason we have monitoring and control. All the control processes like control quality focused on the product state, whether it has achieved that results or not. Is that functional as needed or not? One has to ensure these deliverables has all those features and functionalities. Only then that can be handed over to the respective stakeholder, customer or operation, whoever the stakeholder it is. Next is work breakdown structure. So when we say work breakdown structure, when I look at a specific piece of product or services and have a bigger picture, I cannot even visualize the various different components, various different actions involved in achieving that bigger deliverable. So if I say a car, so I can think of a body external, I can think of a mirror on that body, I can think of a glass in the front, side as well as the back side, and also I can think of interiors like seat, then accelerator, steering, dashboard. All this I can visualize. But since I'm not a technology expert relating to car, can I visualize all those parts which are working inside for car to move, like engine, the battery assembly? I don't know what to say further. So all these can be visualized by an expert. So every product or services should be broken down into multiple pieces. I'm not saying go and break that product. I'm saying that product will have multiple components which are involved. Those needs to be segregated. For example, if I say cars exteriors, cars interior. So cars exteriors, external items you can see, whatever you visualize, body structure, mirror assembly, headlights, then tires. So likewise, whatever I can visualize, I will make it as a line items under the exterior. So under, for example, under a mirror I can speak about mirror glass, mirror cap, mirror pedestal, and mirror assembly where it moves, where you can move the mirror. So these are the various components involved in a mirror. So I need to ensure by breaking down the product into multiple levels, by decomposing it to multiple levels, I can able to visualize the product very clearly. What is there in detail. So once I have the details, I will articulate those. What is that particular work breakdown element is, product breakdown element is. Then I will look at what skills and capabilities required for that product, and I will assign the resources accordingly. So once activities, resources, everything is assigned, automatically this will become a work breakdown structure. Further, after creating a work breakdown structure, one will go and sequence the activity, look at sequencing will happen based on in what priority deliverable should happen, what order deliverable should happen. Then once the sequencing is done, it will be checked to see whether anything can be optimized, anything can be done in such a way that smooth flow of the project can happen. There is no dependencies which will make project to delay. Like as the flow happens smoothly, so you would find the various techniques like critical path method, network diagramming, critical chain method. So all these are used. The floats of an activities are checked. Then leads and lags of the activities, the relationship between the activities. So accordingly, full visualization in terms of how the project will flow and how in what order the deliverables are happening can be easily visualized. So that is the reason first activity is to do the product breakdown, which would result in work breakdown structure. So those are the points till now whatever I mentioned are the basic understanding one should have about a project and project management. So as you deep dive into various best practices like PMP by PMI, Prince 2 by Axelos, Scrum Master, Agile Scrum Master. Similarly, you have Certified Scrum Master, So many agile practices. So when you look at any of the best practices, that will tell you clearly articulate what should be the practice for you to adopt and adapt that practices so that your project can become successful. So any of those approach you touch upon, all those refers to these basic things. In the absence of these basic things, none of those best practices discusses the project management. Now typically in the industry, there are a lot of job roles to the project management which we have seen. So based on that, this information is captured here on various job roles in a project management. So some of them are like project manager, senior project manager, project lead, resource manager, PMO, that is project management office analyst, steering committee member. So not necessarily all the project management roles are limited to this. So these are the roles which commonly you see, and we are trying to capture that to give the insight, right? When I say project manager, the project manager is the owner. One has to take an accountability for the project, right? So project managers takes the project according to the plan and plays a lead role in all the steps of the project management, right? So responsibilities would be managing, reviewing, and prioritizing the task wherever necessary, looking after risk management, stakeholder management, and project communication management. Some of the salary what we found while we were doing the survey, the success ratio of a project depends majorly on the project manager. So the demand for project managers is rapidly increasing in the market. So accordingly, 75,474 per year, that is the USD. In INR, it is 1500,000. So this is what the salary on an approximation what was found. Next role, we look at senior project manager, where senior project manager is the head of the overall project management plan. The role demands in-depth knowledge of all the project aspects on the specifics of the project. The responsibilities would be planning and coordinating complex projects, visiting project sites to check progress and handle complex issues. So salary looks like $104,000 per year, year 2092,000 INR per year. So the role of senior project manager is one of the highest paying roles in the industry as we have seen, having several allowances and bonuses because of the criticality involved in that project and the accountability level of that particular individuals in the organization. Next role, project lead. So project leads are the one who leads the people throughout the project and provide them with all the information required throughout. So responsibilities involve motivating the team beneath taking care of their needs and paying attention to what they feel, ordering or controlling the project team since the project lead has more freedom than the project manager. Salary, project lead makes sure that project gives the best possible outcome and is hence the demand for the project lead in a company never reduces. So in USD, 82,000 per year, whereas in INR it is 1,269,000 per year. Next role we can look at on resource manager. So resource manager is the human resource needed to make the project success, right? So one has to manage those resources. Responsibility involved assigning the right people to the right projects at the right time, managing employees currently, and determining hiring needs depending on the project's requirements. So salary would be around 64,000 USD, which comes around 966,794 in INR. Project Management Office Analyst. For this role, the Project Management Office Analyst works with PMO, means Project Management Office, and does not look at the project or manage the project directly. Instead, does most of the data-driven work which required for a project to have or project to get supported by that, so that project managers will have a better insight. Analyzing and interpreting the data concerning the project, figuring out the future risks to the project, finding new ways to advance the idea of the project management. So salary would be 106,253 per year in USD, whereas 449,337 in INR per year. So steering committee member. So the steering committee members are the members who do not work on the project themselves. They are there to help the project manager, like providing inputs during the development of a project, advising on the budget and evaluating the project strategies, taking regular feedbacks from the project managers and asking necessary questions. So salary would be around $68,497 per year. So those were the various roles, and that list is not an exhaustive list. Various different roles we come across, but these are the basic roles which is seen in the industry. These roles are being recruited. Now there are various project management certifications which are offered, as I mentioned earlier. So those certifications are PMP, that is Project Management Professional from PMI, Agile Certified Practitioner, that is PMI ACP, again from PMI, then Certified Associate in Project Management. So difference between CAPM and PMP is like CAPM would act as a basic level of certification for those who does not have a sufficient project experience, project management experience, whereas PMP is for those who has some project management experience. Similarly, PMI ACP is the one who is aspiring to look at agility in project management, and they can go for it. Certified Scrum Master, yes, it is a Scrum Master certificate which will explain the role of a Scrum Master in detail. Similarly, Prince 2, a certification from Axelos, which also speak about all the aspects of the project what we discussed and provides the framework for project management. Axelos also provides Prince 2 certification in Agile also, Agile Prince 2 certification. So we will look at each one of this, certain details which are required for us to know. So project management professional, as I mentioned, is most acknowledged and value, the certificate value what it carries, which has resulted to the certified professionals in landing up in highest paid jobs in the world. So certified managers gets 20% more salary than the average salary. So to take up an examination, one has to go through the formal training of 35 hours. That is one of the prerequisites, and there should be some experience of 4500 hours of project managing project by leading various activities of a project. And once the person becomes eligible with that prerequisites, person will become register in the PMI's website, becomes member, and then go for examination. So examination fee for PMP would be $405 for the members who are registered with PMI, and for those who are not registered as a member with PMI, it is $555. The duration of the examination is 4 hours, and the number of questions will be 200, which are multiple choice questions. So each question carries 1 mark. There is no negative scoring. Now prerequisites, one has to have 4,500 hours directing and leading the projects. That experience has to be filled in while filling the application. If a person is a bachelor degree holder, and along with that 35 contact hours of PM education. Now prerequisites for the one who is not a graduate, who may be high school or diploma, is 7,500 hours of directing and leading projects, 35 hours of PM education. So those are the prerequisites before one will go and appear for examination. So once an individual passes PMP examination, that certificate is valid for 3 years. So now after 3 years, if the person aspires to keep the certificate continued, they need to produce 60 PDUs, professional development units, which has to be acquired during those 3 years. How to acquire? One has to go through additional learning, one has to contribute towards project management knowledge base. So those needs to be evidenced, and then renewal fee has to be paid and certificate has to be renewed. Then Agile Certified Practitioner, as we saw for PMP, here Agile Certified Practitioner demonstrates that one has relevant experience and education to handle and lead Agile projects. The organization has started shifting towards Agile, as we know in today's industry, which makes this certification fast growing in the world. So examination fee would be $435 for PMI members, $495 for non-PMI members. Duration is 3 hours and multiple choice questions, 120 questions. Prerequisites is 2,000 hours project management experience with 1,500 hours agile experience and 21 contact hours of agile practices. So maintenance, 30 PDOs are required for every 3 years, and after paying the renewal fee, that can be renewed. Now certified associate in project management. So here this is an entry level certificate of PMI, especially for those people who has less project experience. It intends to demonstrate fundamental knowledge, terminologies and processes of effective project management. So examination fee would be $225 for PMI members, whereas $300 for non-members of PMI. So duration of examination is 3 hours, and examination will have 150 multiple choice questions. So prerequisites, someone who has secondary diploma with 23 contact hours of PM education is enough. There is no experience of doing the project is required, as we saw in PMP. So maintenance is again 3 years. Someone who need to continue the certification has to retake the examination every 3 years. Next, certified Scrum Master. So certified Scrum Master is an entry-level certification that helps the professionals to begin as the Scrum practitioners. It is one of the most sought after certifications, as after this one can get the designation of certified Scrum Master, which is offered by Scrum Alliance. So examination fee, which will change time to time, which is not revealed. So one has to approach the training organization where they will get trained on certified Scrum Master. So duration of examination is 60 minutes and pattern would be 16 hours, 2 days of training and 50 multiple choice questions after that particular 2 days of training. Then prerequisite is done for maintaining these credentials. So one has to ensure it has renewed every 2 years. Then projects in controlled environment, that is Prince 2. So Prince 2 is a method which is effective mostly from the base of UK. All the organizations who are from UK region prefers to have Prince 2 certification, and it is as popular as any other project management certifications like PMP. So examination fee would vary from $900 to $1,000 depending on where exactly you're taking the examination, and certification will happen at 2 levels. One is at foundation level and other one is practitioner. So in foundation, it is 60 questions, multiple choice, and in practitioner, it is 68 questions. Now, 60 questions or 68 questions, each carries 1 marks for correct answer. Any wrong answer, there will not be any negative scoring. One has to score 55% to clear the examination. So prerequisites for Prince 2 Foundation is none, whereas Prince 2 Foundation is a prerequisite for Prince 2 practitioner examination. So to maintain the certificate, one has to achieve 20 CPDs every year, continued professional development. So now as part of this project planning, we would be trying to understand what is project planning fundamentals, then why project planning, tools for project planning, and then basic project planning steps. So let us look at a scenario, what happens if there is no planning in place, right? So if you look at a scenario where one of the executives in the organization who is in the project is tensed, and what is the reason the person is tensed? If you go and inquire that person, so he says, I have issues in estimating the budget. Now when we say planning, planning is not just about budget. Planning is beyond budget, so which involves many things like schedule, which is time, the scope, which means the deliverables, as well as the resources and other things what we need to do the project, and to understand what is the deliverables in requirement perspective. Similarly, we speak about quality, we speak about risk, we speak about stakeholders, procurement. So likewise, the planning is bigger than just a budget, but however, in this case, we are just looking at a scenario where estimating the budget has become an issue. So what could be the reason that has become an issue? Right, that might be because you haven't planned for project properly, so which requires a detailed understanding or proper understanding of whatever we are doing. So let me tell you how you can make sure it doesn't happen again with the help of project planning. This is what the response from experienced personnel in the organization who is into PMO or who is into project management practices on regular basis, who has a significant amount of experience. So that is the reason he could able to point out, let us look at the planning. So only then we can able to have a proper understanding about what needs to be done and what is there exactly we need to focus on. So now, what is project planning? Now, when we look at a project as a whole, when we visualize project as a whole, planning is one of the important part. Now, if I look at PMI's framework, we speak about 49 project management processes. Till PMBOK 6th edition, it was defined. So now, out of 49 processes, 24 processes are dedicated for planning, which means almost 50% of the processes are there for planning, and that is the only area where you have the processes in all the knowledge areas. So we speak about 10 knowledge areas like integration, then scope management, then cost management, schedule management, risk management, quality management, communication management, stakeholder management, procurement management, resource management. So in each of these knowledge areas, we have the processes when it comes to planning. But when I say I'm going to initiate the project, I'm going to execute the project, I don't see processes in all the knowledge areas, and it has its own reason. We'll not get into that. However, the important point what we need to have an understanding is planning plays such a significant and important role, where majority of the clarity you obtain, you have to obtain during the planning. So we will have this confusion. So when I go with the detailed planning of something, I may end up in having some changes in between. Means whenever there is an uncertainty in the project, uncertainty is huge. Now there you cannot have a detailed planning for entire project, but you may require to have the detailed planning for the extent it is visible to you. To the extent it is clearly visible to you as a project manager, then you can able to execute that part of it and get into elaborating further and then understand the next part of the project if you are going as agile way of doing the projects. But however, in either of the cases, whether you are going with the predictive approach of the project or you are going with the adaptive approach of the project, in either cases planning is must and it plays very important role. So many a times we only look at the deliverables part of it. You only look at some processes relating to executing part of it. We miss out in terms of risk, we miss out in terms of quality, maybe we miss out in terms of analyzing on the effort and resources. So these will actually create issues as you progress in the project, and you may find difficult in taking the project to the directions required, to the objective, what needs to be accomplished. So first thing we should have a clarity is any project when organization takes up the project for a reason, maybe because of solving certain problem or improving or enhancing certain performances or enhancing certain features functionalities in the particular product or services, or wanted to introduce some new product or services into the market. Likewise, there are many reasons organization would have to take up the project, and when organization takes up the project, we should keep in mind organization takes up the project for a reason, business reason. Now as a project manager, I need not worry about revenue, but I may require to have a proper understanding of why the project is taken up, what is the reason the project is taken up, and what is that organization is trying to accomplish out of it. When as a project manager I have the clarity, it helps me to take the project in a specific direction. So we should not have any ambiguity or not having the clarity. Instead, as a project manager, one has to obtain the clarity, and to that context, to accomplish, to have everything set aligned to the directions, we may require to plan. So everything we do in the project should be aligned to what we are doing. However, in planning, everything should be visible, must. Only then you can able to bring that alignment. If it is not available during the planning, if we are not considered during the planning, then obviously we may find difficulty in taking things into that required alignment or accomplishing that objective, because your execution will be based on your planning, and all that you monitor and control will be based on what is defined during the planning. Similarly, when you close, before closure you check whether everything is accomplished. Again, that is what is defined in the planning. We may have something defined before project is taken up, but the justification happens there for sure. But for aligning to that, you do planning. So everything should be in line, and what intent the organization wanted to accomplish, that needs to be achieved, and that requires a proper planning. So looking at a project in entirety, right? In a project in entirety, project may have multiple stages or phases. Project may have multiple packages to deliver. Project will have multiple deliverables. So each of these would consider initiating, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and closure. Now at each level. So if I look at a project level, yes, definitely it is there. If I look at a stage or phase level, yes, it is there. If I look at a specific deliverables, yes, it is there. At every level, we plan. So since our interest, our focus of this particular session is to look at the importance of planning, project planning, let us focus on planning part of it. But however, I will give you some overview of the framework, project management framework, how it would look like. So when I say initiate, what should I initiate? So initially, the initiation happens from business itself, as I mentioned already, for accomplishing certain objectives. Through that trigger, project is taken up, a business case would be created, a project charter will be created, and that project charter will be handed over to the project manager. While creating this project charter, that would be considering all those details which is mentioned in the agreement or the business case, and then that will provide an entire summary of the project, what needs to be accomplished, what is that organization aiming to accomplish through this project. So having that clarity, project manager would take up and connect with stakeholders, and then identify all the stakeholders, discuss with them, bring in SMEs, have a team structure, and then create a detailed planning if it is predictive, or a skeleton plan if it is agile approach. I mean adaptive kind of thing. So once the planning is done, it's all about execution. So as a project manager, the project manager as an individual may not be doing the hands-on of that particular project execution. However, the project manager would be involved actively in terms of ensuring all those resources are available, all those processes are complied with, then all the stakeholders are connected, updated, deliverables are happening as per the plan. So project managers should see that it is happening and get that things done. So in many project management session, I keep telling people, keep asking me this question specifically: do project managers should have a subject matter expertise? Answer is yes, not to the extent where project manager will go sit and do the configuration, but however, project manager should know what question to ask, what exactly the team is speaking about. Project manager should be able to visualize that. So meaning project manager should do the groundwork immediately while you get into planning in entirety. Understand from the SMEs, understand from the industry experts, or you do your own groundwork to know what exactly it is. Speak to business, and then only then during the execution you know exactly what is that output can be expected, and accordingly you do monitoring and controlling. So from execution to monitoring and controlling, so while we do monitoring and controlling, so as the deliverables comes out, or as the features is been introduced, so there should be metrics to measure, there should be methods to measure those metrics, and each of those metrics, critical success factors or key performance indicators, one should be able to analyze and understand, interpret. So it should not look like just a number. I'm working to accomplish that number. It should not look like that. So accomplishing that number should result in accomplishing the intended objective. So that is a kind of understanding team should also have. So through monitoring and controlling, one should align the entire thing by giving that picture, snapshot, how things are going in execution. So which project manager should actively involve here as well to understand, but this is based on what is being planned. Then once it is confirmed, everything is accomplished or achieved according to the plan, then that can be declared for closing. Further it can be an acceptance. So without having any confirmation in monitoring and controlling that everything is accomplished, things cannot move towards closure. So once it is done in monitoring and controlling, once the validation is done, then only the acceptance can happen. So once the acceptance is done, formality of handing over the product or feature, putting into production, having formal sign off from the customers happens in closure. But acceptance in terms of features delivered or it is according to what we have planned, those are checked in monitoring and control and formalized in closure. So let us move towards planning. What exactly happens in planning? So we get into defining objectives, so explaining the scope. Now speaking about defining objectives and explaining scope. Now I told business has taken up a project with an intent that will have a direction. Now to accomplish that particular objective, the planning should have its own set of objectives considered in alignment with the objective what is defined. It is a context, the direction what is set. So those objectives should be clear to the team. It is not just about defining, those needs to be explained to the team. So team should be well aware of what exactly they are going to accomplish by doing this. Then explaining the scope. Now scope, when you say, one should visualize both the deliverable as well as what I should do to deliver it. For example, if I am making a pot, for example, a clay pot. A clay pot would be having certain shape, size, color, thickness of the wall of that pot. So this is a specification of pot. That is the output, that is a deliverable, and that itself will have the scope. So clay pot will have the scope, and to accomplish that clay pot as an output, I need the clay mix, I need to have that wheel which is used, I need to have a person who know that pottery activity to make that pot, and all that resources, materials, what is required to do it. Now one is the scope of that output itself, which you can call it as product scope. Other one is scope of the activities, the processes, the resources, what we do. So the scope of output we can call it as a product scope, and the scope of what we want to accomplish that results we can call it as project scope. So we cannot go other way around.
We cannot define the project scope and say that I'm going to accomplish this deliverable. No. So first we need to understand what is the output, what is that requirement we are going to fulfill, have the clarity, have the description, have the picture, how exactly it looks like once it is completed, and then you come back and define what process I need to do this, what resources I need, and what effort I require, what budget I need, who are the stakeholders for this. All that picture will come only when you have the clarity about what is that I am going to deliver from the project. So product scope as well as project scope. Then scheduling task. Now I said project scope. Product scope, we understood what is to be delivered. Now project scope, when I say, we have a set of activities, we have a set of resources, we need the budget, we need to have an involvement of stakeholders. Now all of these should happen at a specific point in time. Everything cannot be done in a specific one time, right? So it needs to be sequenced. It has to be understood what kind of sequence it is. So how am I going to do this? When am I going to do this? When is very important. So each of this activity, what I need to carry out to accomplish that particular results, I need to have the schedule defined clearly. So when? So some activities may happen in parallel, some happen in sequence. For example, if I take a wall in a construction project, if I take a wall, after doing the plastering of the wall only, I can do the curing. I cannot do the wall finishing as well as curing of the same wall at the same time. It cannot be in parallel. Whereas I can construct a wall 1, meanwhile parallelly I can have a construction of other wall or curing of other wall I can do. But wall A, if I say, the plastering of that wall and curing that of wall, I cannot change the sequence. It should be in sequence only. Whereas parallelly, if I am constructing another wall on the other side and curing that is possible, which can be done in parallel. So that we need to visualize when we schedule, when we set that sequencing of that activities, we may require to have a proper understanding of that. That is about scheduling tasks or activities. Then generating progress reports. Now it is very important, anything and everything we do, we may require to capture, we may require to analyze, we may require to review, we may require to see what can be improved, we may require to look at what can be optimized, and we need to understand what is going good, what is not going good, how can we overcome that, something which is not going good, how can we further improve on what is that we are doing good. So we need to analyze that. So for that, first and must is to understand how is it now. We wanted to have this to happen in certain way. Is it happening that way, or is it happening in some other way? What is it exactly it is happening? So we may require to capture the details. So while planning, I said we may require to consider critical success factors, key performance indicators, metrics to measure. But we should know, what does this metrics mean? How am I going to analyze this? So if I say 80% of utilization means what? What is my interpretation? Should I keep quiet or should I do something about it? We should understand that. So now I am supposed to accomplish something in 25 minutes. I did that in 30 minutes. What does it signify? 5 minutes extra I took. Is it okay? So it depends on what deliverable, what activity, how important is the deliverable. So that understanding should have. So those things has to be analyzed by capturing those details as a report and reviewing that significantly, thoroughly, along with the team as well as the stakeholders, relevant stakeholders. And then the way you represent that particular report may have the variation because when I use that metrics to discuss and review with the team, the objective will be different. Whereas when I do it with my boss or my customer or some other stakeholder, the objective may be different. What they want will be different. So I cannot get into the detail what I discuss with the team. Similar details I cannot discuss with the other stakeholders. It depends who are the stakeholders with whom I am going to discuss this and what is that I am going to present and how are we going to depict this and what exactly we are going to learn. What is that we are going to do further from this. So project will have a specific objectives and directions clearly mentioned. But to take it in that direction and understanding whether it is in direction or not, or are we required to do some changes to bring it back if there is a deviation. All this needs to be, the clarity needs to be obtained. Now, what are those planning fundamentals? We may require to have clarity in terms of what is that we need to consider while planning very clearly. So here, determining scope, cost and resources. So the process of scope, cost and resources, I said 10 knowledge areas I mentioned earlier. So in that scope, cost and resources, so definitely 3 important areas which helps in estimating time required to complete the project, the number of people needed and with what skill set. Now this is one tricky thing. So now it is not just about human resource, it's about skill set. Now in that skill set, again you speak about to what extent. Is it at expert level or at the basic or intermediate? What is that exactly? To what extent? What is expected out of that role? All this depends on deliverables, what we need to do, right? So the understanding of this one can have by having the work breakdown structure. Now many times I have seen whenever I use this term work breakdown structure, people straight away get into writing the list of activities and then organizing them in certain order. That is not the way to do the work breakdown structure. So now whenever we start doing work breakdown structure, first thing one needs to focus on is on the deliverable. Now for example, if I take a bottle as a deliverable, a simple water bottle. Now water bottle, if as a user, if I look at it, it just looks like a plastic one, a transparent one with a cap, water filled inside. That's how it looks like for me as a user. But for someone who is creating it, for someone who is making it, I need to have certain activities, processes which are required, equipments, resources which are required to create that bottle, right? So what does the bottle will have as a deliverable? It will have that body, right? The main bottle body. It will have a cap, and along with the cap there will be a ring which will just use to seal that particular cap. Then it is not plain bottle, right? So you will have a wrapper around it. That is another deliverable. If you want to do the breakdown of this bottle, I would say cap as one part, cap ring as another part, maybe body as another part, body wrapper as another part. Now further I can have a description. So cap will have a specific color, cap will have a specific size, right, and specific circumference, radius, thickness. Similarly the cap ring. Then water bottle, if you take again that transparency level, kind of material of that bottle and its specifications, the design you want to have on the bottle. It's a ring design or some S design, whatever, as you look at the bottle, or a plain one. And then base of the bottle, neck of the bottle. Then comes the wrapper which you put it across, the sticker part of it. What is that the sticker is all about? What is the combination? What is the design of the sticker? So likewise, I will break down. So bottle looked very simple. So same thing if I visualize for a car as an example. So I can say car interiors, car exteriors, and intelligence of the car as 3 main parts, breakdown parts. Similarly then the interiors, if I speak about, I can speak about under interiors, the seat, the gear lever, the steering, right, the floor, then the dashboard. I can have that breakdown. And further, and inside there is a mirror as well, right? So if I speak about further, if I break down, if I take a seat as an example, so seat has a base, seat has the backside one, headrest, then the seat mount, like as many things comes up. So I keep breaking down like this until logically I cannot subdivide. Now similarly, if I take exteriors, I can take body, bonnet, then rear view mirror outside. Likewise I can do intelligence. If I take like engine system or intelligent AC system, likewise I can have the breakdown. Let us take car rear view mirror as an example. If I break it down further, mirror cap, mirror mount, mirror glass, right? Similarly, I can speak about mirror motor, likewise. Now, can I further subdivide this? Mirror glass, mirror cap, I cannot do. So, I will stop there. For each of the breakdown items, I keep breaking down to the extent where logically I cannot subdivide. It doesn't make to subdivide further. Now what I will do, the work breakdown structure, the technique we call it as decomposition. We do top down, as shown in the picture here. Top down it is going. So now once you have this top down structure, breakdown structure, which we call it as a product breakdown structure. Once I have the product breakdown structure, then I'll go bottom up now. What will I do? Bottommost item I will take. For example, mirror glass I will take as an example. So what is the thickness of the glass? Definitely rear view mirrors are convex mirrors. What is that convex specification of that mirror? What is the thickness of that mirror? What is the size and shape of that mirror glass? I'm speaking about glass only. I've not even touched about the cap. I've not even touched about motor till now. I'm just speaking about the glass alone, mirror glass alone. And once I have the specification to that mirror glass, to that I would see what resource I need for it. What effort is involved to make the glass, right? And what is the budget? What is the risk involved? What is that quantity I need to make? So all these details I am putting at that level itself, lower level. Then I'll move to the cap. I'll speak about all of this relating to the cap. I do estimation of that. Then I'll speak about the mount, mirror mount. Then I'll speak about the motor. Likewise, from bottom up, I will do it for every element and keep consolidating upwards. As I consolidate upwards, at the ultimate consolidation level, top level, I will have overall budget, I will have overall schedule or effort, I will have overall resources required, total resource required, I will have what are the activities involved in consolidation. Likewise, I have a consolidation upwards. So once we have this consolidation, we can easily look at the effort involved, the budget involved, and further we can optimize. So that's where work breakdown structure is very essential. So now whenever I speak about work breakdown structure, a simple question which comes up, common sense question, not the wrong one, asking, okay, it is very good if I know what is the deliverable clearly. So in today's environment, we are speaking more and more about adaptive in nature, the projects with adaptive in nature. A lot of changes keeps coming in. People speak about becoming agile, etc. Now what is happening here? How do I create work breakdown structure? Nothing to worry. So now if you take an example of a bank introducing a mobile app for mobile banking, let us give an assumption. Now what happens here? Even though there are a lot of mobile banking applications available, we are used to it. Bank cannot release the full-fledged product simply because the investment perspective, enabling the bank and consumers to use that app. If I take me as an example, till now I never used the mobile banking application of the bank with whom I have the account. They have motivated me many times. I never went. I never used it. I never thought of using it. I'm using third-party application and integrating everything. Then does it mean that I don't like my banking application of the bank with whom I have an account? Answer is it is not the answer. Something like I've never wanted to test it. I did not find time to look at it. I'm not motivated enough to look at it. The existing one is okay with me, kind of thing. So if that happens, the investment of bank will be waste, right? So they need to motivate their customers to use the application and see what kind of transaction is happening in that account, and only then they can able to invest further. They have to take the feedback from their consumers and then move forward. So there we have the agility. Changes keeps coming in, prioritization changes. So here, as a mobile banking application, I know what components are involved, features are involved. Only priorities will be changing. In this case, I will not have an issue of creating work breakdown structure. But in a scenario where I am doing some research, I am introducing new product to the market, unique new product to the market, which I don't have any clarity how it will function, but still to some extent I will have the clarity about the product. So whatever the extent of clarity you will have, you should do this breakdown so that you can able to track them. So as you bring in new features to it, where it doesn't, where it is not mentioned in the WBS structure, you can keep adding to this WBS structure so that pictorially you have something in front of you. So tracking will become simpler and easier later. So that's about our breakdown structure. So identification of problem, right? So variety of techniques such as conducting surveys or meetings are used to collect information to assess problem. So it's not just about problem, it's all about opportunity also. Right? So problem management, when I say usually we do proactively, we do reactively. So proactive problem management is always foreseeing what can happen if I continue like this as it is. What happens if this happens, what if conditions we will analyze, and then we take action. That is proactive problem management. Reactive is something has occurred, to resolve it, we'll get into that. So in either of the cases, identification of problem is very important. So problem resolution can help in terms of enhancing and boosting something as part of your organization's functionalities. So within the project there may be something which needs to be addressed. So this needs to be analyzed. So planning helps in analyzing this proactively. You're not reactive to anything, so you're proactive. Business may be reactive to some extent. In that case also you can be proactive in terms of problem management. So there may be multiple problems, single problem, some problems where you may require to have an attention need to be paid immediately. So one interesting part is whenever I ask someone what is your understanding about problem, they say issue, they speak about some failure. So they find difficult to link the term problem to actual meaning of the problem itself. So when I say issue, when I say occurrence of something, that we can call it as an event or issue or incident. That cannot be a problem. So for occurrence of this event, for occurrence of that incident, for occurrence of that issue, there may be certain trigger, root cause. That root cause can be called as problem. So that correct understanding we should have whenever we say identification of problem. Something failed, like for example internet failed in this training, that is not a problem. Internet failed means it is an incident occurred. Why internet failed? As I go deeper and try to understand why it failed, then we will see the cause. That is the problem. That if you address, we can eliminate many ways, improve the availability of the incident and reduce the number of incidents related to internet not available. So that's what the problem is. The problem doesn't come in operations or business as usual. We will find such things in the project also. So to address the problem, sometimes we take up the project. So which we need to have a proper clarity about what is the problem we are trying to address. But remember, any project what we take up introduces change to the environment. Problem resolution, if I say, that resolution itself is a change happening to the environment. If I bring in a new structure in the place where it is an empty land, then that new structure is introduced to that environment. Likewise, every project introduces change. So in a way, a change, project management is change management. That we should keep in mind always. Then identification of stakeholders. Now as I take up a project, when I have a project charter as a project manager, I would have specific deliverables, specific objectives to accomplish. But who will be there with me? Who can give me the proper clarity or requirement? So I need to connect with stakeholders. As a project manager, foremost thing which I need to do is to check who are the stakeholders. I need to connect with the stakeholders. I need to identify the stakeholders. Initially, I identify the stakeholders fine, but that is not the end. Identification of stakeholder is not a one-time job. We need to keep evaluating on the stakeholders, their impact, their influence, and influence of project and impact of project on stakeholders. And this is repetitive thing. Reason being, the stakeholders who were there initially when we actually started the project may not be there. Various different reasons. There may be resignations, there may be promotions, there may be change of role as part of that organization's job rotation, role rotation, many reasons. So we may require to keep identifying the stakeholders, re-evaluating the existence of those stakeholders, and then keep updating our stakeholder register. So who can be stakeholders? Stakeholder can be an organization, stakeholder can be an individual, stakeholder can be a group of teams, anything. So who can influence, impact directly, indirectly, get influenced, get impacted directly and indirectly. All these are stakeholders. So identify the stakeholders, capture them in the stakeholder register, look at what is their importance. We call it as something like power interest grid. What is the power of a stakeholder? What is their interest relating to this project? For example, if I am doing an IT project and if I consider IT head as a stakeholder, obviously high in power, high interest, because project is related to IT. This IT project, if I have an HR head, high in power, but low interest. If the project is not related to them, for example, I am working on a project to have a network connectivity from an internet service provider, LAN connectivity as part of our need of organization. HR department or HR is least worried about it because their objective is totally different. Their focus will be in a different direction altogether, but high in power. How do I engage with HR head? How do I engage with IT head? That I can define based on this power and interest. So we have something called power interest grid, which can be used to put the stakeholders in each of the grid part and see how do we engage. So that is very important. This may keep changing based on the position changes or involvement of new stakeholders time to time, and then accordingly you need to keep having the change of strategies to engage with that stakeholders. Then defining project objectives. So a plan is made keeping in mind the various expectation of stakeholder. So very important, when I say plan, please remember organization or customer will have certain requirement. That will be the scope of the requirement. To fulfill that requirement, you will have the solution. So solution will have certain requirements. Now these solutions, to fulfill these solutions, you have the resources, you have the process, you have the facility. That is a set of requirements you will have. Likewise, requirement is of various different layers, and this requires a specific alignment. Similarly, you will have a requirements at a stakeholders level. So unless you understand and how they connect with each other, if you do not have the clarity, you cannot bring that alignment required. So that needs to be analyzed carefully. So the success of project entirely depends on how much of expectation can the project meet. So by default, expectation is achieving 100%, accomplishing the expectation 100%. That's where you see the success of the project. But many times the project may not achieve everything, various different reasons. But you as a project manager should not aim for not achieving everything. If something is going out of the hand which you cannot control, organization cannot control, definitely project manager will be in touch with project board or sponsor. They are unable to help you in bringing things under control. Obviously it means it is out of control from the system itself. So such things you cannot do anything, like business acquisition, or you may have some disaster scenarios. Many such things comes up, because of which project may not complete as per the intent what you have. You may not accomplish those. It may close prematurely. However, which is in your control, you should know, and you should move towards the direction what is required to accomplish the project, and that needs to be updated to the project board or project sponsor or PMO, whoever is the project governance authority. A project manager should have a good handshake with them on a regular basis, and a review with the team always. Right? Only then you can able to achieve that objectives, and whatever you plan should consider all of this. So here we speak about risk. Right? So if something gets deviated, why it will deviate? Like power failure in this training I told. Power may fail, that is a risk. So when we run this session, if power fails or internet fails, are we ready to handle it? Yes, to some extent. Okay, power goes off. I have the UPS. I may say my laptop has the battery. But laptop has the battery, but what about internet? Internet systems should need the power. So obviously we need to have an UPS. What if UPS fails? Can you work beyond that? I don't think so. We should work beyond that. That risk remains, but probability of such occurrence is very less. Right? So that we need to analyze. Similarly, if you speak about something which we accomplish as part of this session, the object is what we need to accomplish. We were not able to accomplish it 100%. That uncertainty remains. So to what extent we can able to accomplish it, what efforts we may require to put to accomplish it, that's what we need to analyze and then move forward and be ready for it. Alright. Now, till now we spoke about what is need of project planning and what are the life cycle of a project, what are those involved, like initiation, planning, execution, monitoring and controlling, then closure. Then we spoke about some fundamentals of project planning. Now, why project plan? Let us look at that. So, with proper planning, it will help us in terms of reducing cost and time. Instead of saying reducing cost and time, I would say optimizing cost and time. So, by monitoring and then ensuring that things are under control as we progress. So, project planning helps us to accomplish that. Increase employee satisfaction. This is one important thing. So we keep hearing this. Happy employee means happy customer. How many times have we heard about it? But in reality, is it true? Now, why do we say happy employee means happy customer? A satisfied employee will have more tendency to contribute to organization and its success. So how do you keep employees satisfied? It is very subjective, but while doing the planning, you may require to ensure to fulfill or satisfy the need of the stakeholders involved. So employee is one important stakeholder. When I have taken up a project, can I have all the employees of organization satisfied? Answer is no. Then who is that employee we are referring to? Maybe like users who are going to use this particular product or service, the team members, whoever is involved in doing this project. So visualizing them and ensuring those particular set of stakeholders are happy, involved, right? They contribute and complement to the project. So focus on engaging team for greater project performance. So unless the team is motivated, you cannot see that they connect to the users better. So if users connection is not such not there with the people who are actually engaged in the project, because as a project manager you may not go and speak to all the users, right? So to test or to implement or something, to show, to demonstrate, etc. So there should be user satisfaction. Whenever there is a query from users, the team should respond to them well. For example, we took up a project of moving from Windows XP to latest operating system because Windows XP support was stopped. Now users are on ground. The team should go and work with them because the production will get impacted if we just take things randomly. It has to be scheduled, the schedule should be communicated, a new platform, new things what is coming up. There should be education to the users, user enablement should happen. Technology is one part for sure, that needs to plan. The procurement has to be planned better and you should do it. But when there is no proper connect with the users and the team doesn't connect, when will team connect? Team should have clarity. Team should have the sense of accomplishment, only then they connect better. So bringing such engagement with the customers and users is very essential. Then implementing quality assurance. Now quality assurance should happen as we go. We use two terminologies, right? Quality assurance, quality control. So quality assurance focuses on compliance, quality assurance focuses on accomplishing the objective of processes, what is told, what is mentioned, doing it 100%, less deviations or zero deviations, and doing all that's required to be done as per the plan. So since planning gives that clarity, obviously one should be able to understand that plan and then take things forward accordingly. Then reduces project risk. Already as I mentioned, risk means uncertainty of occurrence of something. So there are many known things which can happen. For example, if I take this training, what are those things which can go wrong? Internet may fail, power may fail, laptop may fail, the platform may fail, trainer may become sick, or participants may create noise, right? The backend team is not supporting in time. Many things can happen. The PPT is not coming up properly, the streaming platform is not working properly. So all these are uncertainty. All these are working at the moment, but they're uncertain. In what probability? Let me say 5% uncertain. Are we ready to handle it? So we should make ourselves ready to handle that uncertainty. So we should have the mitigation plans. We should have a resolution for it proactively. Only then we can able to address it. Now when can we have this visibility as this kind of risks are there in each of this thing what we are doing? Through experience, with the involvement of SMEs, with the involvement of someone who has actually experienced this journey, they can give that visibility. These type of occurrences can happen relating to this. And also hypothetically you can come up with what else can happen. Like for example, with one of my customers, when we were discussing, we were supposed to take over the entire operations from the existing service provider. So customer came up with one interesting thought. What if the existing service provider moves away in hostile way? So they declare from tomorrow we are not going to support. What will you do? Are you ready to take over that from tomorrow itself? What is your readiness? It's very interesting. The probability is very lesser than 1%. But the business interest of the entity is engaged with the brand value what they want to establish. Nobody will pull out just like that. But however, we cannot ignore that query what customer had. So we gave the sufficient explanation of our readiness. Hostile exit is an interesting thing. Many times you will have this from the employees, if not the service provider. Many of your team members can have that hostel exit. They would have absconding scenarios. How do you handle that? What if your SME is absconding? What if someone who is supposed to deliver one important thing, maybe not a significant SME, but the deliverable perspective, the availability of the team members are very important, but they are not available. What will you do? So now these kind of risk factors which needs to be looked at. When I say risk, the uncertainty, not just negative always. Risk by default we call it as uncertainty with certain probability of occurrence and impact. But risk doesn't mean only negative. It can be positive also. What can be positive risk? I can have a overwhelming results. I thought it will achieve 100%. It went beyond that. Very nice, no? So like for example, COVID-19 pandemic scenario, we thought our productivity would reduce because everything is working from home. Instead, productivity increased. Earlier it used to be around 70%, has become 120%. Possible? That is positive risk. So uncertainty. In what perspective, in what is the chance, in what probability it can become an improvement in terms of productivity when people go working from home? I don't know. Maybe I would say 2% possible probability. It can happen. So any uncertainty is risk. It is positive, it is negative. But we will have a tendency to look at the negative part of it because it will have an impact. It will pull away us from what we are supposed to accomplish. That is the reason we look at negative risk and analyze them regularly. As I spoke about stakeholder register, here also you may require to establish risk register. But again, it is dynamic document. As you progress in the project life cycle, new risks will get introduced. Many risks what you identified initially may not be there. The probability of that impact may go off. So likewise, new risks will get introduced. Existing risks may have a different kind of impacts, kind of thing. Power failure, if I take an example as a risk for this training, what if power failed when I started the session? Entire session is gone. Impact. What if it goes off at the last 5 minutes of the session? Negligible impact. Occurrence is same, power going off. But when it occurs, the proximity of occurrence also matters. So likewise, we may require to keep evaluating the risks throughout the project life cycle. Identify new risk, add it to the list, and then analyze them regularly throughout the project life cycle. That is very important. Then tools for project planning. So definitely we may require to have a set of tools while we plan, like WBS thing what we saw earlier. Likewise, many tools and techniques we need as we go through the planning. One is Gantt Chart. So Gantt Chart, we use it for having visibly represented schedule. Right. So I think any tool if you see today, including Excel sheet, I'm telling. So either MS Project or Primavera or the Google project sheet or Excel sheet, any kind of project management practices, if you see, you will see the visual representation like Gantt Chart. So Gantt Chart is one type of view. Other one is we can think about network diagram view. So once you establish a Gantt Chart, you can have a network diagram view which will show you when the activity is going to start, what is the sequence of the activity, and how they are connected, each of the activities, with the dates, with the resources, with the activity, what needs to be accomplished. Right. With the color combination, you can say that when it is starting, when it is ending. Likewise, similarly, we have critical path method, where you have tool determining each of the activities. And critical path means in a given diagram, network diagram, the longest path is called as critical path. So the duration of the longest path of the network diagram will be the duration of the project. So why do we call that as a critical path? We call it as a critical path because any delay in the critical path will delay the project itself. Any delay in the critical path will delay the project itself. That is the reason we call it as critical path method. So another one we have like critical chain method. So critical activities which are essential for accomplishing the required results, which has to be looked at very carefully. See, if something delays there, will delay the project. So critical path method is crucial tool for determining the progress of project, so that project is on schedule. Right. So longest path and delay in the critical path will delay the project. So similarly, we have like PERT chart. PERT refers to program evaluation review techniques. which will help in analyzing the tasks to complete the project and time required to complete those tasks. We call it as 3-point estimation while analyzing this. Optimistic, pessimistic, most likely estimates, and accordingly what would be the estimate of the duration, right, which we use in terms of planning. Then work breakdown structure, I guess we went through it in detail already. So we do decomposition top down and do project breakdown first, and then we go bottom up, adding budget, resources, schedules, efforts, then resources required, then how long it takes, in what sequence sequencing can happen after having the work breakdown structure. Like we said, critical path or Gantt chart sequencing, those we can do only after work breakdown structure. The project documentation. The project documentation starts from the point where you create a project chart. Before that, there is documentation. Documentation in terms of agreements, documentation in terms of business case, many such documents which are referred while creating a project charter. Project charter will become a first document handed over to the project manager. From then, project manager will go create the stakeholder register, then the scope documents, then risk documents, budget part of it, schedule part of it, then risk, quality, procurement related contracts and agreements, then register required all this, the stakeholder register, because many documents which are created, then referred, updated throughout project life cycle, so which are very essential. Now when something called Agile manifesto we come across, it says one of the manifesto points is deliverables, delivering the features over documentation. Now does it mean that we are ignoring documentation? Answer is no. Comprehensive documentation, that's what the word it shows. Documentation. To what extent? To the extent what is required for that scenario. If it is adaptive, obviously the minimum documentation required, as we progress we can keep updating that and consolidate it. Whereas predictive, obviously end-to-end view you have, so you can create a comprehensive documentation in one go. So why do we not do full-fledged comprehensive documentation in adaptive? Simply because any changes comes up, so we'll have a lot of changes to be done in the documentation also, which will become tedious exercise. But we are not ignoring documentation, right? So project documents helps in capturing what is that actually done and what is that we have planned, did we really accomplish, and it will also become evidence to show that we have done it. So very important. So basic project concepts would involve like identifying and meeting the stakeholders, defining scope, then setting and prioritizing objectives, determining deliverables, then create project schedule, risk analysis, set progress reporting guidelines. Now this flow typically is like linear. So identify and meet stakeholders means you are meeting with stakeholders, you are understanding the requirements and the operating scope, understanding. Then you keep that prioritization, give it importance. What is that first we need to do? What is next? You should have that sequence. Then you get into determining what exactly the deliverable is to accomplish it. And as you have the sequence, what kind of structure happens here? Determining deliverables kind of thing. And the sequencing happens when it comes to create project schedules. And each of that you may bring up with a risk analysis for all the constants. Constants should be scope, schedule, cost, resource, risk, quality. So you look at risk associated with all of this, and then have metrics for all of this, and then have a progress report as we mentioned, and this should be a regular thing. So identifying meet stakeholders happens during the initiation part of it. First step is to identify the stakeholders and understanding their expectation. Explain that earlier in the flow as well. Then you will define scope. So project scope involves determining the list of specific project goals, deliverables, budgets and deadlines. Then the project scope helps in establishing boundaries of project and responsibility of each member. Then you will go set and prioritize objectives. So objectives are set, prioritize once the expectation of stakeholders become certain. Means you are clear now what is the exact expectation of stakeholders. So this step final detail to the initial idea is that serves as a reference point all through the project. So then determining deliverables. So deliverables are the reasons why projects are created. It is one of the most important steps to understand those deliverables. So project planning, steps of the project planning determine what these deliverables will be and how will they be delivered in time. Then you create project schedule, which is an outline of different tasks of a project are supposed to begin and end. So remember, project will have a beginning and end. The very definition of project itself says project starts. Project is temporary in nature. The definition of project itself is temporary and over. So it has a beginning, it has an end. It may be for months, it may be for many number of years, doesn't matter. Definitely there's a beginning, there's an end for project, which creates unique output. So project schedule helps in measuring progress and setting up the project progress reports. Risk analysis. So one needs to identify risks and consider steps to deal with it. It is an important step of project planning. Steps to prevent risks from happening or limiting their impact should be considered. Next, aside progress reporting guidelines. There must be a communication plan to update the stakeholders regarding the project progress. This can be done monthly, weekly, or daily so that all involved members can monitor the progress. And why is it very important? We discussed about it in detail earlier. And that needs to be done on a regular basis. And one should have a clarity how the project is progressing. Very clear. So I think as this explanation comes up, I guess it is very clear. One can able to plan the projects within the budget and do things better to achieve completion at quality. That's what he's expressing. Thanks for explanation. I was able to plan projects within budget and of better quality. Right.
We will talk about project plan in Excel. We will learn about a project plan and how we can make an effective plan in Microsoft Excel. Before we begin, let's have a look at all the topics we will be covering today. First, we will see the basics of a project plan. Then, we will check the process of project management in Microsoft Excel and why should one refer to Microsoft Excel. Apart from this, we will learn about how to make a Gantt chart in Excel. Towards the end, we will check some Microsoft Excel templates. So without any further ado, let's get started. Let's see what is a project plan. Project plan is a basic thing that is needed to execute a project. According to Project Management Book of Knowledge, a project can be defined as an approved, elaborative document that guides the team during project execution and project control. When we are making a project plan must answer several questions for us. These questions are like, what are we expecting our project to deliver? How are we expecting to get our deliverables within the desired time? Who all will be a part of a project and what tasks they will have in the project? When will the project start and when it is expected to end? That is the deadlines of the project. Now, let us learn about project management in Excel. Microsoft Excel is one of the most common applications these days. It is used in both offices and at homes. Microsoft Excel is an easy project management tool that allows the team members to easily see the tasks in a project, develop a plan, and track its progress. Before we learn more about project management in Excel, let's first have a look. Why do we use Excel? Microsoft Excel is an easy tool to plan a project, so it can be used by people who are beginners in terms of project management. In Excel, one can find several analytical tools like concatenate, len, and counter, so this makes data analysis easy and effective. As the entry of data is easy, same is tracking and controlling of project status. Then, there are several project management templates in Excel that help us to have an effective distribution of project data. We will be checking several project management templates towards the end of this video. Now, let's have a look at the process of making a Gantt chart in Excel. Before we begin this, it's important we know what is a Gantt chart. A Gantt chart is like a horizontal bar chart that is used for project management. With the help of a Gantt chart, we can check the status of the task, the date they start, the date they end, and their dependencies on each other. Gantt chart helps in coordinating and monitoring different tasks in a project. Now, let's have a look at the steps that will help us in making a Gantt chart. First step we have is make a project table. We have several rows and columns. Like here, we have 3 columns. In the first column, we have the tasks. In the second, we have a start date. And in the third column, we have the duration or tenure of the task. The second step is to make a bar chart in Excel. For this, we will select the entire second column. Then we will go on the Insert tab and click on the bar graph chart. There, we can select Stack Bar Graph into the bar charts. As a result, we will have the entire bar graph on the screen. In the third step, we will add the duration to the bar graph. We will right click on the chart and the menu that appears, we will select Data option. A window that appears on the screen. In that window, we will select Add option as shown. We can also see the start date is already in the entry section. Then in the dialog box that appears, type tenure in the series name and click on the range selection icon that's shown in the figure. Now select the relevant data from the tenure column and click on OK. Now we can see a bar graph that has 2 colors on the screen. This bar graph now has the duration of the tasks. The fourth step we have is add description to the Gantt chart. Now we will open the box again and in that box we will select the edit option as shown in the figure. Then we will select the tasks as we had selected the duration of the task before and click on OK. We can now see the tasks have appeared towards the left side of the Gantt chart. The fifth and remarkable step will help us convert this bar graph into a Gantt chart. We will now click on the bars and select the Format Data Series option from the menu that appears. Then in the Format Data Series dialog box, we will select No Fill option. We can find our Gantt chart on the screen now in accordance with the data that we had entered. Now we can see the tasks on the left side are in the reverse order. So what we will do next is, we will click on the task panel, then go to the Format Excel dialog box and select the categories in reverse order option. Now we can find the tasks in the right order. One more thing we can notice is, Gantt chart is starting with some other date and not with the dates that we had entered. So for this, we will copy the first date in some other cell, then clicking on the copied cell, we will go to the home menu to select the dialog box as shown in the figure. Then in that drop down menu, we will select the number option. We can now find a value displayed in the copied cell. We will copy that value, click on the dates on the chart, and as the Format Access dialog box opens, we will paste that value in the box that says minimum shown in the figure. As a result, we will have a final Gantt chart on the screen. In the last step, we can give several designs to a Gantt chart, change colors, and make it more presentable for us. Now when we know the basic steps of making a Gantt chart, I will show that practically to you in Microsoft Excel. Our first step is to open Microsoft Excel, and in Microsoft Excel, we will make a project table. In a project table, we will have 3 columns. The first column will be task. The second column will have the start date. The third column will have tenure or the duration of that task. So beginning with tasks, we have task 1. In task 1, we have 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. Then comes task 2. In task 2, we have 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and 2.4. Then we have task 3. In task 3, we will have 2 subsections, 3.1 and 3.2. Then we will start with the starting dates. In starting dates, we will put 1st January. The task 1.1 will be 1st of January. And this will be 4th January. Let's say this is 5th January. Then we will put this as 11th of January. And this will be again 11th January only. This will be 15th January. Let's put this as 17th January. Let this be 19th January. Task 3 begins on 23rd January. And the 3.2 section begins at 26th of January. Now let's put the tenure or the duration of the task. We will begin with task 1. It takes 12 days. Then 1.1 takes 7 days. We say this takes 4 days. And this takes 8 days. Then for task 2, it again takes 12 days. It takes 5 days, 5 days, and let's say this takes 6 days and this takes 4 days. Then we come to task 3. This takes 8 days, and let's say this takes 6 days, and the 3.2 section takes 5 days. So this is how our project table is ready. In the second step, we will select the entire second column. After we have selected this column, we will go to the Insert tab. In the Insert tab, we will go to the bar columns, and in this, we will select 2D stacked bar charts. Now we have the entitled bar chart in accordance to our data on the screen. Then comes the third step. We will add the duration of the tasks to the bar graph. We will click on the chart, and after we click on the chart, we will select data option. In the select data source dialog box, we find the start date is already there. Now we will click on add, and after we click on add, in the series name section, we will put tenure. Then in the series value, we will click on this icon and select the entire tenure series and click on OK. So this is the bar graph that we have now. This is now in two colors, the orange color and the blue color. This bar graph now has the duration of all the tasks in our project table. Now the fourth step, now it's time for us to add description to our Gantt chart. Instead of this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we will put task 1, task 2 and the subtasks. So what we will do is, we will again go to that box, we will left click on the Gantt chart, select the select data option, and then we go to the start date. Here, we will select the edit option. In the edit option, we will select all the tasks and click on OK. Now we can see all the tasks are aligned towards the left of the bar chart. As we can see, this is a bar chart or a bar graph and not a Gantt chart. The next step we have is converting this bar graph into a Gantt chart. So we will click on the bars and select the format data series option from the menu that appears. Here, we have this format data series option. Now we can see the dialog box on this screen. Here, we'll go into the color section, fill section, and then we will select no fill. Now we can see the blue lines have disappeared. So this looks like a Gantt chart. So now when we have a Gantt chart on the screen, we can notice that the tasks here are in the reverse order. So what we will do is, we will click on these tasks and select the format Excel option. Here, we will select categories in reverse order. We can see a Gantt chart is now in order, like we have a task 1 on the top and task 3 at the bottom. The dates are starting from 11th of December, but the dates we have provided are from 1st of January. Now we will copy the cell, then go on the dates box. Here, we'll go to format axis. In the format axis, we can see minimum. In this minimum, we will paste this value and press enter. As we press enter, we can see a Gantt chart starting from the date that we wanted to start and that in the correct order starting from task 1 to task 3. Now as a result, we have our final Gantt chart on the screen. In the last step, what we can do is make our Gantt chart more representable. We can change the color of these bars, we can give them shapes, and we can do many other things to make it more presentable. We will first select the bars. Like what we will do is, we will select task 1, and let's say we give it a color blue. Then task 2, we will give it color green. And task 3, we'll give it the color black. So here, the subsections will give different colors to the subsections as well. Then we come to task 2.1. This is how we can change the color of the cells, or apart from changing colors, we can select a bar graph and do the gradient fill. So this is how we can make our Gantt chart more presentable. After changing the colors or changing the shapes, we have a final Gantt chart on the screen. Finally, let's have a look at some Microsoft Excel templates for project management. Microsoft Excel templates help in collecting data, putting them into order, and check the dependencies with each other. With the help of these templates, we can monitor the status of the task, and we can also check the progress our project has made. Moving forth, we will check some important Microsoft Excel templates. The first template we have is Excel Project Review template. This template helps us have an overview of the project. We can have a clear understanding of all the tasks that are planned and that are completed. This helps project managers to measure the progress of the project and take first steps accordingly. Second template we will check is Excel Budget template. In this template, we can monitor all the expenditures of a project. It helps us in managing the budget of a project and also helps in comparing the budget of a project at different phases. Let's have a look at the budget template in Excel once. We can download this template from officetimeline.com. The Gantt chart towards the right is in accordance with the dates towards the left. If we fluctuate the date, we can see the template working. The start date for task 1 would be changed to 10th June. If we change this date to 10th June, we can see a fluctuation in the Gantt chart. So this is how we can use this template directly. Let's have a look at the third template now. Third template we will see is Excel Sprint Project Tracker template. This template is used mainly in agile projects, where the project is made in several sprints or sessions. This template includes the start date, the end date, and the duration of each task. You can also see the percentage completed of each task. Let's have a look at the Sprint Project Tracker template as well. We can see the Gantt chart towards the right and the data towards the left. So if we change any data, we can see the Gantt chart changing. For example, we can change the data in Sprint 2 Feature 3. Let's change the start date to July 2nd. We can see the Gantt chart changing. This is how we can use this template directly to track our sessions. Let's have a look at the fourth Excel template. This template is Excel Project Tracker. In this template, we have the data of all the tasks with their status and owners. We can track the percentage of tasks completed and also compare the planned duration of the task to the actual duration of the task. After the critical part tracker, let's check the Excel Project Schedule template. This template helps in effective management of the project as it helps in monitoring the time that each task of the project takes. It provides a clear view of all the work associated with the project. Let's have a look at this template in Excel once. We can see the Gantt chart in accordance to the data. If we change the estimated hours at two places, Let's say at the design review, we make it 15 hours instead of 5 hours. And at the create staffing plan, we make it 2 hours instead of 20 hours. We can see the Gantt chart fluctuating. This is how we can use this template to manage the schedule in our project. Moving forward, the next template we will see is Excel Project Status Report template. This template helps us having a list of project deliverables and risks associated with that project. This template helps the project managers about different crucial activities involved in a project. After this, we have Excel milestone tracker. The milestone tracker helps us in tracking or monitoring different tasks in a project. Project managers use this template to monitor the project performance with respect to the timelines. The last template we will see is Excel Project Planner. Excel Project Planner includes a list of tasks with respected owners along with the start date and the end date of the task. This helps in monitoring each task and comparing the estimated task date with the actual ones. Let's have a look at this template in Excel. We can see the Gantt chart with respect to the data entered. Let's make changes at several places in the data. We can make this 22 to 24, we can make 23 go to 2, and we can make this 5th September go to 15th September. And when we make the changes, we can realize the Gantt chart is fluctuating. So this is how we can use this template to plan a project effectively and efficiently.
In this lesson, we will focus on project time management. Let's begin with the objectives of this lesson. After completing this lesson, you will be able to define project time management, explain project schedule, Gantt charts and network diagrams, identify the key terms used in project time management, describe the project time management processes, explain various schedule network analysis techniques. In the next screen, let us take a quick look at the project management process map. There are 47 processes in project management, grouped into 10 knowledge areas and mapped to 5 process groups. In this lesson, we will look at the third knowledge area, that is, project time management and its processes. Let's begin with the first topic of this lesson, project time management. The purpose of project time management is to ensure that the projects get completed on time. This knowledge area is primarily concerned with developing a project schedule and ensuring that project goes as per the agreed schedule. If there is a need to change the project schedule, the change should happen by following a proper change control procedure. Another term used in the PMP examination is Schedule Management Plan. Schedule Management Plan is part of the Project Management Plan and has information on the planned project schedule and its management and control. Let's discuss the key activities of project time management in the next screen. The key activities that are part of the project time management include identifying activities, estimating time and resources, and sequencing activities. It is important to identify a list of activities that would be a part of the project. Next, an estimation of time and resources required for completing the identified activities are done. Finally, these activities need to be sequenced as per the dependencies. In the next screen, let us discuss project schedule. Project schedule represents the time dimension of the project plan and has information like when the project would start, when each of the project activities would happen, in what order the project activities would happen, when project would be completed, etc. Usually, software system is used to develop the project schedule. The project team can enter the list of activities in the software, as well as their dependencies, and software can produce the project schedule as the output. Microsoft Project is the most popular tool used for project schedule development. Generally, project schedule is considered similar to project management plan. Project management plan is different from project schedule. Project management plan not only has information about the project schedule, but also other important project-related plans, like risk management plan, cost management plan, etc. Let us focus on Gantt chart in the next screen. Gantt chart is a type of bar chart that illustrates a project schedule. It shows the dependencies between the project activities as well as their percent completion. A sample Gantt chart is shown on the screen. 2 summary elements of work breakdown structure are depicted. To complete those elements, there are a number of activities under them. Some of these activities have dependencies. For example, activity B and C have a dependency. Activity C can start only when activity B is completed. The chart gives you an idea about when specific activities are planned to finish and when the overall WBS element will get delivered. Create tasks and work with the Gantt chart. This will make answering Gantt chart-based questions easy and fun. In the next screen, let us understand relationships that exist among project activities. Network diagram is extensively used in the project time management knowledge area to plot the activity dependencies. This is a graphical representation of project activities in the form of a network. There are 2 ways to draw a network diagram. In Precedence Diagramming Model, PDM, or Activity on Node, AON, boxes represent activities and the arrows indicate dependency. This type of network can have all 4 types of relationships between the activities. In Arrow Diagramming Model, ADM, or Activity on Arrow, AOA, the arrows represent activities. The relationships and sequences can be inferred from the direction of the arrows and linkages between the activities. In such types of network, only finish-to-start relationships can be shown. Such diagrams may need to make use of dummy activities to indicate some dependency between the activities. There may be questions in the PMP exam based on the network diagram. So create and work with the diagram. This will make answering network diagram-based questions easy and fun. In the next screen, let us look at a network diagram. A sample network diagram is shown on the screen. Activities A and C can happen in parallel. B and D require both A and C to complete, whereas E requires both B and D to complete. Activity on arrow network diagram makes use of hammock activities. They are used to show a comprehensive summary activity combining several other activities underneath for control and reporting purposes. In the next screen, let us look at a few important terms in time management. When a successor activity can start before the predecessor activity can complete, it is considered lead. For example, you can start preparing the test environment 2 weeks before the development activity finishes. When the successor activity has to wait for a few days after the predecessor activity has been completed, it is considered lag. For example, one needs to wait for 2 days for the foundation to settle before work on the pillars for the next floor starts. Rolling wave planning is an iterative planning technique in which the work to be accomplished in the near term is planned in detail, while the work in the future is planned at a higher level. It is a form of progressive elaboration. In the context of estimating techniques, analogous estimating is based on the previous project data. Therefore, if the last 5 similar projects took 6 months to complete, the next one will also take 6 months. This technique employs expert judgment. Another estimating technique is parametric estimating. This technique uses a mathematical model to calculate projected time for an activity based on the historical records from previous projects and other information. A few common parameters are identified based on the previous project data, and that parameter is used to predict the time required to complete the next activity or project. For example, you can normally complete 10 kilometers of highway construction lanes a week. Effort is the total amount of work required to complete the activity. Duration is the amount of time it takes in terms of elapsed or calendar days. If you have an activity that requires 10 people to work for 5 days, the total effort is 50 person days, but the duration is only 5 days. In the next screen, let's look at the project time management processes. There are 7 project time management processes. They are plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, and control schedule. The first 6 processes are executed during the planning process group. The ultimate goal of these planning processes is to develop the project schedule. The 7th and the last process is a part of the monitoring and controlling process group. In the next few screens, let us discuss these processes in detail. We will begin with plan schedule management. As defined in PMBOK Guide, plan schedule management is the process of establishing policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, developing, managing, executing, and controlling the project schedule. It belongs to the planning process group. Let us look at the inputs to this process. The project management plan provides other subsidiary plans and will guide the schedule planning activities on the project. The project charter provides an overall context and a high-level product and project description, which might help determine the approach for schedule management. Few projects might have scheduling constraint. For example, projects of Olympics 2016 should be completed at the same time. Enterprise environmental factors provide the organizational context to the project, including the culture of the organization, the infrastructure like scheduling systems available, key personnel, and so on. Organizational process assets provide input such as policies and procedures, templates, past performance data and estimates, historical information, and knowledge base. Now, let us look at tools and techniques employed in this process. Expert judgment refers to input received from knowledgeable and experienced resources. Expert can draw from their previous experiences the proper approach to govern the schedule on a project. Meetings may be organized to determine the schedule management plan. Anybody responsible for the project schedule management, such as the project manager, sponsor, customer, and other stakeholders, must attend these meetings. Several analytical techniques may be used to determine the schedule management plan. These may include different planning approaches and philosophies, such as rolling wave planning, or different scheduling software that allows to build what-if scenarios and study the effect of advanced scheduling techniques like leveling, fast tracking, and crashing. Now, let us look at the outputs of this process. Schedule management plan is a component of the project management plan that describes the criteria and activities required to arrive at the project schedule, as well as how the project may be baselined, monitored, and controlled. In the next screen, let's define activities process. Define activities is the process of identifying the specific actions to be performed to produce the project deliverables. It belongs to the planning process group. The important input for the define activities process is the scope baseline. Scope baseline is a term used collectively to refer to project deliverables, constraints, and assumptions of the project. In addition to the scope baseline, the other inputs in this process are enterprise environmental factors, organizational process assets, and schedule management plan. A reason why enterprise environmental factors is an input to define activities is because the organization might be using project management software to define activities, and that may influence the activity definition process. The knowledge base containing historical information regarding activities lists used by previous similar projects is a good example of organization process assets applied to scheduling. The tools and techniques used in defining activities are decomposition and rolling wave planning. The last technique is expert judgment, where the experience of project team members is used in developing detailed activity lists. The output of the process is activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list. Activity list contains a list of identified activities. Activity attributes are the additional information about the activity itself. A milestone is a significant point or event in the project. A milestone list identifies all the milestones and indicates whether the milestone is mandatory or optional. Let us move on to the next process, sequence activities. Sequence activities is the process of identifying and documenting relationships among the project activities and is also part of the planning process group. For every activity and milestone, except the first and last one, is connected to or at least one predecessor and one successor. The inputs to this process are activity list, activity attributes, and milestone list. All these are the outputs of the defined activity process. The other inputs are schedule management plan and project scope statement. Schedule management plan provides guidance in terms of methodology to be employed for many of the scheduling activities on project. Organization process assets are also an input to sequencing activities because the organization might have some kind of knowledge base for scheduling project activities. The enterprise environmental factors relevant to this process may be scheduling tools in use, project management information systems, work authorization systems, etc. One of the important tools and techniques used in sequencing activities is the precedence diagramming method. In this method, the activities are drawn on a network diagram and all the different kinds of dependencies between the activities are determined. While determining activity dependency, it is important to identify the type of relationship or dependency between the activities. The other technique is leads and lag, which is widely used for sequencing activities. The output of the process is the project schedule network diagram, which is a graphical representation of the project activities in a form of network, which also shows the activity dependencies. While designing the network diagram, new activities might be identified, and that would result in some of the project document updates, especially the ones that list all the project activities. In the next screen, let's look at the estimate activity resources process. After sequencing the activities, the next step in project time management is estimating the resources required to accomplish each of the identified activities. Estimate activity resources process also belongs to the planning process group. Here, resources do not mean only the human resources, but includes all other resources like equipment, raw materials, machinery, etc. Schedule management plan is the first input. Schedule management plan provides guidance in terms of methodology to be employed for many of the scheduling activities on the project. The other inputs to this process are an activity list and activity attributes that are the outputs of time management processes. Risk register is another input. Risks to the project may influence the decisions about resources that need to be deployed. Hence, risk register becomes an input to this project. In addition, activity cost estimates are another input. Cost and resource estimates on a project are interrelated and influence each other. For example, the cost might dictate the number and type of resources that can be employed, or the time might dictate the cost that may need to be incurred. Along with this, the resource calendar is also an important input because it has the information about the availability of each of the resources. Some of the enterprise environmental factors that can influence estimating activity resources are availability of required resources within the organization. The organizational process assets is also an important input, as the organization might have standard policies for staffing or for hiring contractors on the project. With all these inputs available for estimating activity resources, there are various techniques used for estimating the required resources. The first technique is using expert judgment. In this technique, an expert in resource planning and estimating can estimate each of the activities. The next technique used is alternative analysis. In this, the activities are analyzed to identify different ways of completing them. This is to ensure only the required resources are assigned to each of the activities. This helps in resource optimization. Along with these two techniques, many organizations routinely publish their estimating data, and this could be used in activity resource estimation. Another technique that is routinely used in activity estimation is bottom-up estimating, which is decomposing the activity further down to understand it in more detail and estimating at that level. Later, all such estimates are added to arrive at the estimate of the activity. In real projects, one has to use all the estimate each of the activities. Sometimes, the project management software also helps in estimating. The software estimates are based on the inputs provided to it. Software should only be considered as a supporting tool in estimation and never fully rely on its output. Clearly, the output of this process is the activity resource requirements. Along with this, resource breakdown structure is also prepared. The resource breakdown structure is the categorization of all the required resources in various categories. That is, human resources, equipment, raw materials, etc. In the process of estimation, several other project documents may also be updated. For example, the resource estimates are directly correlated with cost estimates. Let's now move on to the next process. Estimate activity durations. The next process is to estimate the duration required to complete each of the activities. The duration estimation should be done by someone who is familiar with the project. For example, the same activity, if done by a high-skilled resource, would take less time compared to a less-skilled resource. This may vary regardless of the resource used due to the project requirements. In addition, the activity duration estimation should be updated continuously as you move ahead with the project. Because as the project progresses, there will be more clarity on the project. The inputs of this process are similar to the ones in sequence activities process. Schedule management plan is the first input. Schedule management plan provides guidance in terms of methodology to be employed for many of the scheduling activity on the project. For instance, it may contain information about the estimation techniques to be employed and the people who need to be involved in the estimation process. Activity resource requirements is also an input to this process because resources assigned to an activity would significantly affect the activity duration. That is, the lower skilled resources would take more time than the high skilled resources. The other inputs include activity list, activity attributes, and resource breakdown structure. Resource calendars are also an input to this process. The type and skill set of resources available to the team may have an impact on the time it would take to complete the activities. Risks to the project may influence decisions about the time required to complete the activity. Hence, risk register becomes an input to this process. The project scope statement defines the constraints and assumptions affecting the project duration. An example of enterprise environmental factor that can affect duration is organization's productivity metrics, which is collected based on the experiences from multiple projects. The last input in this process is organizational process assets. Now, let us look at the tools and techniques used for estimating activity durations. First is the expert judgment, which means using previous project experiences in estimating the current project duration. This can be used with other estimation techniques and used to reconcile differences if different techniques result in different estimates. Three-point estimating is a method where three estimates are used instead of one. It is part of a project management philosophy known as Program Evaluation and Review Technique, PERT. Estimating activity durations is often done as a team exercise, as each activity may require multiple skill sets to be applied. Therefore, it is important to use group decision-making techniques to arrive at a consensus, or at least an estimate that is acceptable to all the team members. Reserve analysis adds buffer into the project schedule to deal with any uncertainty. The contingency reserve may be added as a percentage of the activity duration or a fixed number of work periods. The other tools and techniques are analogous estimating and parametric estimating. The outputs of this process are the activity duration estimates and project document updates. The activity duration estimates is represented in terms of the range of possible results. For example, 10 days plus minus 2 days, that is, the activity would take minimum 8 days and maximum 12 days. In the next screen, let us look into a business scenario to understand this concept better. After reading the problem statement, click the solution button to look at a possible answer. Develop schedule is a process of analyzing activity sequences, durations, resource requirements, and schedule constraints to create the project schedule. It belongs to the planning process group. Generally, scheduling software is used for developing the project schedule. Entering activities, durations, and resources into a scheduling tool generates a schedule with planned dates for completing project activities. Developing a project schedule is an iterative process. Revising and maintaining a realistic schedule is a task in itself, and it continues throughout the project as the work progresses. The most of the inputs of this process are the outputs of estimate activity durations process. They are risk register, project scope statement, project staff assignments, resources calendars, organizational process assets, enterprise environmental factors, schedule management plan, activity list, activity attributes, project schedule network diagrams, activity resource requirements, resource breakdown structure, and activity duration estimates. Various tools and techniques are used to develop schedule process. Schedule network analysis is a technique that generates project schedule. It employs various analytical techniques such as critical path method, critical chain method, modeling techniques, and resource optimization techniques to create a project schedule. The other tools and techniques include leads and lags, schedule compression, and scheduling tool. Let's now look at the outputs of this process. The project schedule consists of a minimum planned start date and planned finish date for each activity. Although project schedule can be represented in tabular format, it is more often represented graphically using either bar charts or network diagrams, or a combination of the two. The final schedule, which is the output of the developed schedule process, is also called schedule baseline. Once the schedule is baseline, it can be changed only through formal approvals. Meeting the schedule baseline is one of the measures of project success. Schedule data produced may include number of resources, key milestones, etc. Project calendars specify the available working days and the number of shifts in each day. It indicates how many hours and days are available for the work of the project to be completed. Project management plan updates are a result of the developed schedule process. Many of the other subsidiary plans of the project plan may get impacted, which may include cost management plan, scope management plan, risk management plan, etc. This may also result in other project documents being updated. In the next few screens, let us discuss schedule network analysis techniques. It is essential to know if the required resources are available at that time, along with the time estimate of each of the activities. Since schedule is calendar-based, it helps in estimating the same. Schedule network analysis technique generates project schedule. There are various schedule network techniques. Critical path method relies on determining critical path on project schedule. Critical chain method is a variant of the critical path method, wherein the critical chain is determined based on logical resource and other kinds of dependencies between the activities. While scenario analysis is about trying to vary a certain parameter to observe the impact on the schedule. For instance, you may want to check result if you put in more resources on a particular activity to reduce its duration. Resource optimization techniques try to arrive at the optimal utilization of the resources used on a project. Ideally, you would want resources to be fully utilized, but you would also want to build in sufficient buffers in case a certain resource is not available due to various reasons. In the next screen, let's look at the program evaluation and review technique. Program evaluation and review technique is based on 3-point estimates for an activity. The pessimistic estimate refers to the worst case scenario, whereas most likely estimate is what you expect to happen in a realistic scenario. The optimistic estimate, on the other hand, represents the amount of time an activity would take in the best case scenario. Based on these three estimates, the expected duration of the estimate is calculated as per the formula given on screen. The formula for calculating standard deviation of an activity and variance of an activity is also given. There is no question asked on variance, but the formula is important because if a standard deviation of the whole project is to be calculated, the process is to calculate the variance of the whole project and then take its square root to calculate the standard deviation of the project. Concept-based questions on PERT can be expected in the PMP exam, so make a note of the formula while you prepare for the exam. In the next screen, let us understand PERT with an example. Let us now figure out how we apply the 3-point estimation that PERT uses in order to draw some useful conclusions. Assume that the optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely estimates are 20, 70, and 30 respectively. Using these values, you can determine the expected duration and the standard deviation as indicated. Now, if the causes of variation are random, you can assume that the actual values will be evenly distributed about the mean and will follow the normal distribution, sometimes referred to as the bell curve. Further, you can use the properties of the normal distribution. There is a 68% probability of the actual value falling within first sigma from the mean, 95.4% probability for the second sigma, and 99.7% probability of the actual value falling within third sigma. Extending this logic, the notion of 6 sigma is reaching a level of confidence that only 3.4 times out of a million would the actual value fall outside the stated range. PERT allows you to plan based on the intended level of confidence in the outcome and determine buffers accordingly. Let's discuss the critical path method in the next screen. Critical path is defined as the longest duration path through a network diagram, which determines the shortest time to complete the project. Float can be considered as a buffer time available to complete an activity. Float is calculated once the network diagram is ready. It is also called as slack. There are 3 kinds of float. The first being the total float, which is the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the project end date or an intermediary milestone. The second type of float is free float, which is the amount of time an activity can be delayed without delaying the early start date of a successor or successors' activities. The last type is independent float, which is the amount of time an activity can be delayed if all the predecessors finish at their latest finish dates and we want to start all the immediate successors at their earliest start dates. The slack of the activities on the critical path is 0, because there is no scope to delay activities on the critical path. Critical path actually represents the project duration. Delaying activities on the critical path is as good as delaying the project duration. Concept-based questions on critical path can be expected in the exam, so it is essential to have a clear understanding of the concept. In the next screen, let us learn how to calculate float. Float of an activity can be calculated by 2 methods. However, the first step in critical path method is to identify the critical path of the network. Once the critical path is identified, follow the forward path to find early start and early finish for each activity. The float of the activities on the critical path is 0, so they represent the overall project duration. Use forward pass or backward pass to calculate the total activity time. Calculate late finish and late start using backward pass method. Note the total float formula before you start for the exam. In the next screen, let us look at forward pass and backward pass methods in detail. In forward pass, you can either go through the network starting with time 0 and keep calculating the time required to complete each of the activities until you reach the last activity of the project. The starting time for each of the activity in this approach is called early start, and end time for each activity is called the early finish. Alternatively, in backward pass, you can travel through the network from the project end date and calculate the time required to complete each activity. The end date in this approach is called the late finish, and start date of the activity in this approach is called the late start. The float of the activity is either the difference between the late start and early start, or the difference between late finish and early finish. Both the differences work out to be the same. Before the start of the PMP exam, please make a note of the total float formula. Let's understand the critical path calculation with an example in the next screen. Let us look at an example for critical path. There are 5 activities in this project and 2 paths in the network diagram. Start 1, 2, 4, 5, end is one path, and start 1, 3, 5, end is the second path. Since the duration of the path start 1, 2, 4, 5, end is 18 days, which is more than the duration of the path start 1, 3, 5, end, the critical path of the project is start 1, 2, 4, 5, end. Let us take activity 3 as an example. First, calculate the early start and early finish dates. Activity 3 can start only after activity 1. Since the early finish of activity 1 is 3, it becomes the early start of activity 3. Activity 3 cannot start earlier than 3 because activity 1 can be completed only by then. Therefore, early start of activity 3 is 3, since the duration of the activity is 4 days. The early finish of activity 3 is 3 plus 4 equals 7 days. Now, let's calculate the late start and late finish of activity 3. Late start of activity 5 is 14 days. The activity 3 happens just before activity 5. So the late finish of activity 3 is 14 days. To calculate the late start, you can subtract the duration from late finish. Therefore, the late start of activity 3 is 14 minus 4 equals 10. In the next screen, let's focus on schedule compression. Look at the 4 activities in the table. The normal cost of executing each of the activities, as well as how much each of the activities can be crashed, is also provided. Which activity would you crash to reduce the project time by 1 day? Activity A will be crashed if the duration of the project is reduced by 1 day, as the per unit cost of crashing the activity A is the least. All the activities are assumed to be on the critical path here. By crashing, if you end up saving time on the path, which is not the critical path, you will not end up saving time on the project. In the next screen, let's look into the impact of schedule compression. Different schedule compression techniques have different impact on the project. The impact of fast track leads to risk additions and increase in management time for the project manager. Crash leads to cost addition and increase in management time for the project manager. Reduced scope, on the other hand, saves cost and resources, but increases customer dissatisfaction. Likewise, but quality saves cost and resources, but increases risk. Resource reallocation does not add cost or increase risk. In the next screen, let's look into the other techniques used in scheduling. There are several techniques that are used in scheduling projects. What if scenario analysis? In this technique, questions like, what if a particular scenario changed on the project? Would that produce a shorter schedule? Are put forth to understand the impact of specific changes on the schedule. The goal is to produce a realistic schedule. Monte Carlo analysis. In this method, a computer simulates the outcomes of a project, making use of randomly generated values that map the probability distribution of the input variables. Together, these 2 techniques are called modeling techniques. Resource optimization techniques. These are also used to produce a resource-limited schedule. Resource optimization results in more stable number of resources used in the project. Critical chain method. This technique develops a project schedule that takes into account both the activity and resource dependencies. In the next screen, let's look at the last process in project time management, control schedule. Control schedule is concerned with determining the status of the project schedule, determining that the project schedule has changed, and managing the actual changes as they occur. The project schedule is an important input to this process. It is the actual schedule that needs to be controlled. Schedule data contains information related to the schedule that may need to be monitored in order to take actions to bring the project back on schedule. Project calendar describes the working hours and days for the project. Work performance data has information like which activities have started, their progress, and which activities have finished. The other inputs to this process are project management plan and organizational process assets. The key tools and techniques of this process are the performance reviews. Performance review is measuring, comparing, and analyzing schedule performance, such as actual start and finish dates, percent complete, and remaining duration for work in progress. The other tools and techniques include resource optimization techniques, modeling techniques, schedule compression, leads and lags, scheduling tool, and project management software. In development schedule process, these techniques are used for the first time to develop the project schedule, whereas in control schedule process, these techniques are used to update the project schedule. The key output of the control schedule process is the work performance information. This is represented in the form of schedule variance, SV, and schedule performance index, SPI. As part of the control schedule process, the project team will generate forecasts, likely schedule for forthcoming activities, and project as a whole. The other outputs include organizational process assets updates, change requests, project management plan updates, and project document updates. In the next screen, let us look into a business scenario to understand this concept better. After reading the problem statement, click the solution button to look at a possible answer. Here is a quick recap of what was covered in this lesson. Project time management includes the processes required to manage the timely completion of the project. A project schedule defines the start and end dates of the project and the project activities. These activities are assigned a duration and sequence in a logical order. Gantt charts and network diagrams are used to identify project activities and determine the relationships and dependencies between them. Gantt chart displays the start and end dates of project activities, the overall project schedule, and the logical task relationships, while network diagram is used to plot the activity dependencies. Plan schedule management, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity resources, estimate activity durations. Develop schedule and control schedule are the 7 processes under project time management. Schedule network analysis technique generates project schedule based on the estimates of time and resource requirements. In this lesson, we will focus on project cost management. Let's begin with the objectives of this lesson. After completing this lesson, you will be able to define project cost management, differentiate between cost estimation and cost budgeting, explain control accounts, describe the project cost management processes, apply earned value management technique to track project performance, identify key terminologies used in project cost management. In the next screen, let's take a quick look at the project management process map. There are 47 processes in project management, grouped into 10 knowledge areas and mapped to 5 process groups. In this lesson, we will look at the 4th knowledge area, that is, project cost management and its processes. In the next screen, let us understand the concept of project cost management. Project cost management involves activities like estimating the cost of each of the project activities, adding the cost estimates of related activities to arrive at the cost budget, and controlling the cost to ensure that project activities are completed within the defined budget. In the next screen, let us discuss cost management plan. The cost management plan is a vital step in project cost management. It contains information like planning project cost, managing and controlling project in relation to cost baseline, and managing cost variances. Project cost management plan is a part of the project management plan. Methods used in estimating the cost of each of the project activities are similar to the ones used in estimating project time. For example, Plan estimation methods like expert judgment, analogous estimating, bottom-up estimating, and reserve analysis are a few of the techniques that are also used in estimating activity cost. Let's discuss control account in the next screen. Control account is an important concept in the project cost management. Project cost is generally estimated at individual activity level. It becomes difficult to manage cost at the activity level in large projects. Therefore, the cost is managed at a high level. This requires related activities to be clubbed and their cost being managed together as one unit. This unit is called control account. While estimating the project time, WBS is created to break down the project into smaller deliverables. These deliverables are broken down into work packages, and these work packages are in turn broken into activities. Control account is defined at a level higher than work packages. For example, if 5 work packages are part of the one control account, the cost of all activities belonging to these 5 work packages are managed as one unit. In the next screen, let us discuss the project cost management process. Project cost management has 4 processes. They are plan cost management, estimate costs, determine budget, and control costs. The 3 processes, plan cost management, estimate costs, and determine budget, are a part of the planning process group, and control cost process is a part of monitoring and controlling process group. Let's look at each of these processes in detail. Let's begin with the first process, that is, plan cost management, in the next screen. Managing costs on a project is a critical exercise. If the activities are planned well, it becomes easier to achieve harmony with the overall cost and budget of the project. Plan cost management is the process of establishing the policies, procedures, and documentation for planning, managing, spending, and controlling project costs. Let's look at the inputs required for this process. The project management plan provides other subsidiary plans and guides the cost planning activities on the project. The project chart provides overall context and high-level product and project description, which help determine the approach for cost management. For example, for some projects, budget could be a constraint, whereas for others, budget would not be a constraint, but subject to the other objectives. Enterprise environmental factors provide the organizational context to the project, including the culture of the organization and the infrastructure, for instance, the scheduling systems available, the key personnel, and so on. Organizational process assets provide inputs such as policies and procedures, templates, past performance, data and estimates, historical information, and knowledge base. Now, let us look at the tools and techniques employed in this process. Expert judgment refers to input received from knowledgeable and experienced resources. Experts can devise an approach to govern the cost on a project by using their previous experiences. Meetings may be organized to determine the cost management plan. Everyone responsible for the project schedule management, such as the project manager, representatives from the appropriate accounting or financial organization, sponsor, customer, and other stakeholders must attend these meetings. Several analytical techniques may be used to determine the cost management plan. These techniques help to map the impact of various decisions on cost. For example, how do risk management processes impact cost, etc. Cost management plan is the primary output of this process. It establishes the units of measure, levels of precision, organizational process links, control accounts to be used, rules for performance measurement and reporting, frequency and methodology of monitoring the cost, and various other details that lay the overall framework for cost management on a project. In the next screen, let's discuss the second process under project cost management. Estimate cost. Estimate cost is the approximation of the monetary resources required to complete a project activity. Cost of a specific activity is estimated based on the information available at that point in time. As the project team gets more information about the project, the activity cost estimation may change. Let us look at the inputs of this process. Scope baseline is the most important input as it details out the project scope of work. Along with that, project schedule is also important. This contains information like when and which resources are required for the project. It is good to remember that the same kind of resources may have different costs at different points of time. Human resource management plan is another important input. Various elements like personnel rates, rewards or recognition programs, etc. are covered in the human resource management plan, which is important in approximating the cost estimate. Human resource management plan will be discussed in detail in the human resource management knowledge area. Risk register is also an input because risk mitigation costs should be considered in cost planning. More information on risk and its effect in the project will be looked at in detail in risk management knowledge area. Another input, enterprise environmental factors, provides organizational context to the project. Organization process asset is listed as an input, as organizations might have standard set of cost estimation policies or templates. Cost management plan is another important input. The cost management plan lays a framework for the cost management processes in a project. It provides guidelines such as the units of measure, accuracy desired, methodologies, and tools to be used, etc. Let's now look at the tools and techniques used in this process. Expert judgment, reserve analysis, analogous estimating, cost of quality, parametric estimating, project management software, bottom-up estimating, frequent estimating, vendor bid analysis, and group decision making are the various tools and techniques used in this process. Most of the tools and techniques used here are similar to the ones used in the time management knowledge area. Vendor bid analysis is a technique used to estimate project costs. For example, a project requires material procured externally through suppliers. In order to get that, you invite bids from 3 or 4 suppliers and assess their quotations. Based on the quotations, you can get an idea of the cost that will be involved in getting material to the project. Group decision-making technique is another important technique for project cost estimation. Cost estimation is an exercise which can be carried out by a group or committee in order to gather well-rounded input. Therefore, group decision-making techniques can be used to arrive at a decision that team can work with. The output of this process are quite straightforward. Estimates of each of the activities are arrived at. The basis of the estimate includes things like how the estimate was developed, what were the assumptions made in estimating, etc. Project document updates is also one of the outputs because the cost estimates may result in updates to other aspects of the project. For example, quality, risk, time, etc. In the next screen, let's discuss the third process under project cost management, determine budget. Once the estimate of each of the activities is arrived at, the next project cost management process is to determine budget. It is the process of aggregating the estimated cost of individual activities or work packages to establish an authorized cost baseline. This is where the control account concept comes into the picture. The estimated costs of the activities are aggregated to arrive at the cost budget at the control account level. When approved, this cost budget becomes the cost baseline of the project. Project cost performance is measured against the cost baseline, that is, how much more would the project cost be compared to the original cost baseline. The cost baseline includes all authorized budgets, but excludes management reserves. The inputs used in determining project budgets are the activity cost estimates and the basis of estimates, which are the output of the previous cost management process. The cost management plan lays the framework for the cost management processes in the project. It provides guidelines such as the budgeting cycle, tools and techniques used to prepare and approve the budget, etc. In addition to these two important inputs, scope baseline is also looked at. Project schedule provides aggregate cost in a particular calendar period to ensure how much money can be made available during that time. Similarly, resource calendar provides information on the resource, which is assigned to the project at a particular point in time. This information is then used to indicate resource costs over the duration of the project. Risk register gives an understanding of the overall level of risk on the project and, therefore, the level of contingency reserves that need to be built into the budget. Agreements entered into with suppliers are also required to finalize the budget. Again, organizational process asset is an input because organization may have few policies for reporting the cost budget, or there might be some cost budgeting tools being used. There are various tools and techniques used in determining budgets. Cost aggregation technique involves adding up the cost and aggregating them at the control account level, so the cost can be managed in a better way. In reserve analysis, once the costs are estimated, some extra amount is added to the estimate as a management reserve. to take care of any unplanned activities. Expert judgment is a technique in which an expert helps to estimate the activity cost. Expert is someone who might have worked on a similar project in the past and has a good idea to estimate the activity costs involved. Historical relationships are used to predict the total project cost using mathematical model. This is similar to analysis estimate or parametric estimate method. Funding limit reconciliation technique is used to ensure that cost on a project is budgeted or spent as per the availability of the fund. For example, if a project can get a funding of only $50,000 a month, the project budget should be planned accordingly. The output of this process is the cost baseline. This is an authorized project budget over a period. This is used to measure, monitor, and control overall cost performance of the project. In addition to this, the project funding requirements are also like that. Funding requirements means how much fund the project requires monthly, quarterly, or yearly for the execution. The last output of this process is project document updates. Understanding the determining budget may be useful when answering questions in a PMP exam. So make note of the inputs, tools, and techniques and outputs of determining budget. In the next screen, let's discuss the last process of project cost management. That is, control cost. Control costs is the process of monitoring the status of the project to update the project budget and managing changes to the cost baseline. Updating the budget involves recording actual costs spent until date. Any increase to the authorized budget can only be approved through the Perform Integrated Change Control process. Some of the typical activities that happen as part of the control cost process are ensuring that cost expenditure does not exceed the authorized funding, monitor the cost performance to understand variance, and monitoring the work performance against the funds expended. The inputs to the process are project management plan, organizational process assets, project funding requirements, and work performance data. Work performance data contains the information about the project progress. The important tools and techniques used in controlling costs are earned value analysis management, forecasting, to complete performance index. Other important aspects of controlling costs are the review performance, analyze reserves to make sure the project has enough budgetary reserves to meet expenses, and project management software, which helps in tracking and managing costs. Now, let's look at the output of this process. The key outputs of this process are work performance information in terms of cost variance, CV, schedule variance, SV, and earned value, EV, and forecasts about the cost performance. This process may also result in change requests arising out of cost control measures, as well as updates to project documents, the project management plan, and organizational process assets. Business scenario-based questions on project cost control can be expected in the exam, so if you have questions on these concepts, get them clear as that will help you score higher. In the next screen, let's learn about earned value management and its related terms. Earned value technique is an excellent way to track the project progress against the project plan. It is a method of measuring the project performance objectively and comparing it against the project baseline. Results from an earned value analysis indicate deviation of project cost and schedule baselines. Baseline is the initial approved value along with approved changes. Therefore, schedule baseline is the first approved project schedule along with approved changes. There are various terms used in earned value technique. Planned value is the authorized budget assigned to the scheduled work. Earned value is the work performed in terms of budget authorized for that work. Actual cost is the cost incurred in work performed. Budget at completion is the budget amount for the work. Estimate at completion is the expected total cost of the project. Estimate to complete is the expected cost to finish all the remaining project work. Variance at completion is the projected budget surplus or deficit at the end of the project. All the parameters displayed on the screen are measured in terms of cost. You may come across business scenario-based questions on earned value management in the PMP exam, so ensure that you develop a clear understanding of this topic. Let's look at an example of planned value in the next screen. Planned value is the estimated value of the work planned. This value is measured in terms of currency, say $1. If the planned value is $340, then work planned is worth $340. How do you calculate earned value? The solution is add the budget allocated to each of the activities that have been completed at the point of time. The resulting value is the earned value. In the next screen, let us look at the formula used to calculate earned value. In cost variance, negative means the project is over budget. Positive means the project is under budget. Similarly, in schedule variance, negative means the project is behind schedule, whereas positive means the project is ahead of schedule. The value of the next two parameters, cost performance index, CPI, and schedule performance index, SPI, values vary between 0 and 1. For example, a CPI of 0.8 implies that 80 cents of work is paid for every dollar spent in the project. Similarly, if SPI is 0.9, it implies that the project is progressing at only 90% of the speed originally planned. The next parameter is estimate at completion, or EAC. There are different ways of calculating the EAC value. The method used depends on how the cost and schedule variances are expected to play for the rest of the project. BAC by CPI is used if you expect the current cost performance will continue until the end of the project. AC plus BAC minus EV is used if you expect that the rest of the project will be managed at a budgeted rate. AC plus BAC minus EV by the product of CPI and SPI is used if you want to factor in the impact of the cost as well as schedule variances. AC plus ETC is used if you want to reevaluate the project based on a forecast value for the estimated cost of the remainder of the project. The next parameter is estimate to complete, or ETC, which is cost of the project from this point to the end. This is calculated by subtracting the actual cost from the estimate at completion. In addition, variance at completion can be calculated by subtracting the estimate at completion from the budget at completion. Variance at completion is the cost estimation whether it is over or under budget. Another parameter is the complete performance index, or TCPI. This is the cost performance needed to achieve the desired outcome. For example, if the project needs to be managed to the original budget, BAC, then TCPI, that is the CPI that must be maintained for the rest of the project, is calculated as BAC minus CD by BAC minus AC. Similarly, if it has to be managed within a realized target, say EAC, then TCPI is calculated as BAC minus ED by EAC minus AC. Before the start of the PMP exam, please make a note of the formulas of earned value technique. In the next screen, let's look into a business scenario to understand this concept better. After reading the problem statement, click the solution button to look at a possible answer. Let's take the example of a software development project. There are 4 phases, and each phase takes a month to complete and is expected to cost $10,000. Phases are planned to be completed one after the other. The status of the project at the end of month 3 is summarized in the table. Requirements definition is completed and actual spending on this is $10,000. Architecture and design is done, and actual spending on this is $12,000. Development and unit testing is only 50% done, though it was supposed to be completed by 3rd month. It has cost $9,000 until date. System testing and go live has not yet started. Note, S indicates start time, F indicates finish time, and P indicates that it is partly finished at the end of the month. Based on the above information, calculate the CV, SV, CPI, and SPI of the project. Let us look at a solution in the next screen. Before we end this lesson, let's also look at a few definitions that might be useful for your PMP examination. Law of diminishing return. This means the more you put into something, the less you get out of it. For example, Doubling the number of resources working on a project will not necessarily have the time. Working capital, the amount of money a company has to invest on a project and day-to-day company operations. Funding limit reconciliation, the process of comparing the planned expenditure in a given period with the available funding for that period. Large assets purchased by the company lose value over time. This is called depreciation. There are two forms of depreciation: straight line and accelerated. Same amount of depreciation is taken every year. For instance, a car with a price tag of $10,000 and useful life of 10 years is depreciated $1,000 per year. At the end of the 10th year, the value of the car is considered zero for all accounting purposes. Accelerated depreciation depreciates faster than the straight line depreciation. For instance, a car with a price tag of $10,000 depreciates $3,000 the first year, $1,500 next year, $1,000 the third year, and so on. Let us now check your understanding of the topics covered in this lesson. Here's a quick recap of what was covered in this lesson. Project cost management includes the processes involved in estimating, budgeting, and controlling costs so that the project can be completed within the approved budget. Cost management plan contains details on how to plan, manage, and control the project cost in relation to the cost baseline and to manage the cost variances. Cost estimate is an educated guess of how much an activity or project will cost. Budget considers the cost estimate and accordingly sets aside funds for the completion of the project. Under control account technique, related activities are clubbed and their costs are managed as one unit. The four project cost management processes are plan cost management, estimate costs, determine budget, control costs. Earned value management technique indicates potential deviation of the project from the cost and or schedule baselines. In this lesson, we will focus on project quality management. Let's begin with the objectives of this lesson. After completing this lesson, you will be able to define quality and quality management, differentiate between quality planning, quality assurance, and quality control, explain concept of quality and its categories, describe the project quality management processes, explain the 7 basic tools of quality, explain Six Sigma. In the next screen, let us take a quick look at the project management process map. There are 47 processes in project management, grouped into 10 knowledge areas and mapped to 5 process groups. In this lesson, we will look at the 5th knowledge area, that is, project quality management and its processes. In the next screen, let us understand what quality is. The project manager is responsible for quality of project. However, it is also the responsibility of each and every one in the project to ensure that whatever they do meets project quality expectations. Quality is defined as the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfills requirements. A project is set to meet quality expectations when all the project requirements agreed in the beginning of the project are met and the resulting product is usable. Usable means that the intended user can use the product without any problem. In the next screen, let's look at some quality-related terms. It is important to discuss a few terms to understand the concept of quality better. Customer satisfaction is defined as conformity to requirements and fitness for use. It is important to understand the subtle distinction between quality and grade. Grade is a classification based on technical characteristics. Low quality is always a problem, but low grade may not be a problem. Rather, it would be a matter of choice. Similarly, it is important to understand the distinction between precision and accuracy. Precision is the granularity of measurement. That is, how fine-grained can you measure the outcome. Accuracy is how correct you are. That is, how close you are to the desired value. In the next screen, let us understand the concept of optimal level of quality. Quality comes at a cost. More effort put in quality will give better results. However, you cannot keep on investing on increasing quality, as there is no limit to how much a product can be improved. Investment in quality is determined by knowing the optimal level of quality. Optimal level of quality, as shown in the diagram, is said to be achieved at the point where the incremental revenue from improvement equals the incremental cost to secure it. Suppose you are the manufacturer of toys, but toys are low quality and the sales are low. To improve the quality, you invest in identifying the demands of children, sharing few samples, and recording their feedbacks. Once all these are captured and implemented in products, you lure the parents to buy them. As the investment is increased to manufacture good quality toys, the cost will therefore increase and it will become prohibitive for parents to buy. Optimal level of quality is reached at a point where you get maximum number of buyers for the toys manufactured. Now that we're clear on the concept of quality, in the next screen, let's discuss quality management. Quality management involves performing activities like creating standard policies and procedures and ensuring that those standard procedures are being followed properly in the project. It aims to ensure that project meets all the initial agreed requirements without any deviation and that the specified approach to quality is implemented on project. 3 broad activities are done as part of quality management. They are quality planning, quality assurance, and quality control. Quality planning is the first step when quality-related activities of the project are planned. Quality assurance is the next stage of implementing those quality plans, and quality control is the last stage when periodic checks are done to see if project quality is improving. In the next screen, let us look into the differences between the 3 aspects of quality management. It is important to understand the different kinds of activities that come under quality planning, quality assurance, and quality control. Once the quality plan is done, the quality management plan is ready. This quality management plan has standards, templates, policies, and procedures to be followed in the project. It contains information on the level of quality being aimed and the plan to achieve that level. It is the aim of quality assurance activities to ensure that the activities planned under quality planning phase gets executed for the project. It is the task of quality assurance to determine if the project is complying with the organizational as well as project policies and procedures. This is ensured by conducting regular process audits to identify deviation from what is planned in the quality management plan. These audits are generally done by quality departments of the organizations. Quality assurance focuses on the process, not on specific products. The role of quality control is to measure specific project data or results against standards to inspect and verify project product, defect repair, and measure whether quality indicators are improving. Quality control is about the product and data. For example, it was planned as part of quality management that project would get completed plus or minus 10% within the cost budget. 3 months back when the measure was done, project was over budget by 20%. When the measure was done the day before, it was only 15% over budget. Therefore, the project has shown an improvement of 5% in the last 3 months, and it is quite likely that over the next 3 months, project may get within planned limit of 10%. Instead of showing improvement, if data shows cost increase, then corrective and preventative actions are required to get a project within the 10% limit. This is quality control. In the next screen, let us discuss a few quality management concepts. Let us look at some terms that are commonly used in quality management parlance. Total quality management, or TQM, is a quality management philosophy that involves holistic thinking about meeting the objective of an organization. It places the responsibility of quality squarely on the management. Kaizen is a Japanese term that stands for change for better. Kaizen philosophy is one that should always be looking for small and continuous improvement in the process. Deming cycle, or PDCA cycle, that is, plan, do, check, act, is a process control and improvement approach propagated by the famous quality guru Edward Deming. It means you plan for something, execute it, check the output, and based on the lessons you act to bring the deviations under control. Kanban is a pull-based management system that originated in Japan, based on just-in-time (JIT) inventory management. The idea behind Kanban is to minimize the work in progress and achieve a smooth flow in the process from start to finish. Thus, building up inventory only to paper over the imperfections in the system tends to hide problems. In the next screen, let us focus on cost of quality. Cost of quality is the cost that needs to be incurred to make a quality product. The sum of all the costs incurred is ensuring that the project conforms to requirements is cost of quality. Cost of quality can be broken down into two major categories. First is the cost of performance, or the project total figures. Then there will be some intervention costs, which is the cost of repairs, like training the team, creating equipment, and inside the rate. The other subdivision is appraisal costs, or cost for assessing quality, like testing, distribution loss, and inspections. The second category is the cost of non-performance. It is money spent during and after the project because of failures. This is subdivided into internal failure costs. It is the cost of failures that occur when the product is released to customers, for example, rework and scrap. The second subdivision is external failure costs. It is cost incurred on failures that occur after it has been released by the team, for example, liabilities, work, and lost business. Concept-based questions on cost of quality will be accepted in the exam, so please note the categories of cost of quality. Let's look at project quality management processes in that screen. There are 3 project quality management processes, of which the first process, plan quality management, is done as part of the planning process group. The next process, perform quality assurance, is done as part of the executing process group. And the last process, control quality, is done as part of the monitoring and controlling process group. In the next 3 screens, let's look at each of these processes in detail. The aim of the plan quality management process is to identify the requirements or standards to execute the project effectively to achieve desired quality level. Quality results in the creation of the quality management plan. The aim of the plan quality process is to identify the standards. A standard is an agreed-upon process to work or achieve a result. A standard can be set from within the organization or government. Once all standards for the project are identified, the aim of the quality planning activities involves determining what work needs to be done to meet those standards. Before adhering to the standards, you should question their relevance with the project. Implementing all possible standards applicable to the project in random will have cost and time implications. Let us look at the inputs to the process. The project management plan provides the scope, schedule, and cost baseline, all of which have an implication on the quality management plan. Quality plan has a correlation with these. It might also have an impact on and be impacted by other subsidiary management plans, such as risk management. The stakeholders of the project may have specific requirements and views about the quality parameters of the project, and these have to be considered. The risk register gives an indication about the kind of risks that are inherent in the project, and also those which must be considered while planning activities to ensure quality. The requirements of the project need to be considered for planning quality-related activities, because quality is all about meeting requirements. In addition to these, enterprise environmental factors and organization process assets are also listed as inputs. The standards can be either from within the organization, or from government, or other external bodies. Standards from within the organizations are usually the best practices learned over a period while executing numerous projects. An example of government standards can be standards to control air pollution by the motor vehicles, which vehicle manufacturers must adhere to. To accomplish quality planning, first, analyze the benefits versus the costs of meeting quality requirements. Next, identify the cost of quality and confirm if that investment in quality is justified. In addition to these, benchmarking helps in analyzing the quality activities of similar projects executed in the past. This helps in identifying the particular quality of output of the project, which in turn acts as a basis for the current project's quality planning. Design of experiments can also be used for quality planning. This is a statistical way to determine what variables will improve quality. For example, in the case of manufacturing boards, it can be determined that increasing quality of the wood can have maximum impact on improving the quality of wood. In addition, the 7 basic quality tools, also known as the 7 QC tools, are used to determine the plan to achieve the desired level of quality. Statistical sampling as a tool becomes relevant when a quality plan cannot be applied to all the artifacts produced. For example, if destructive testing is a requirement, it can be carried out only on a sample, not on the entire population. Statistical sampling helps in arriving at a representative sample that can give useful information. Other additional tools, such as brainstorming, force field analysis, etc., may be used to determine the quality management plan for the project. Conducting meetings is another important tool. The quality management plan has to be determined in a collaborative manner by consulting team members and other stakeholders. Quality management plan is a key output of this process. Checklist is a list of items to inspect. For example, many offices have housekeeping checklists to ensure that all floors, cabinets, etc. are cleaned. Checklists are created during quality planning and used in quality control. Metrics are project-specific data that need to be measured to check the status of the project. The simplest project metrics can be cost and schedule. Metrics are also designed in quality planning and used in quality control. One of the roles of the project manager is to not only manage the project, but also improve processes in the project to decrease the instances of defect, which in turn saves time and money. Such activities are listed in the process improvement plan, which eventually becomes part of the project management plan. As a result of planning activities, other project documents may also get updated. For example, the quality management plan may result in updates to the cost or resource requirements. There are many questions in the PMP exam based on the plan quality management process, so please ensure you have a fair understanding of the concept before you take the exam. In the next screen, let's discuss the second quality management process. Once the quality planning is over, the next process in project quality management is quality assurance, which involves determining whether the standards are being met and the processes are being followed. Therefore, the input for this process is work that has been completed during the quality planning stage. They are project documents, quality management plan, process improvement plan, quality metrics, and quality control measurements. Let us look at the tools and techniques used in this process. Quality audit is a process to check whether the project is complying with the organization policies, standards, and procedures, and determine whether these policies, standards, and procedures used are efficient and effective. So a good audit not only looks at this compliance, but also for new lessons learned from the current project that can help make the future projects better. Process analysis involves using lessons learned from the initial few work to make the remaining work more efficient. For example, if the project involves installing a software package, then a lesson learned from the first few installations can be used to improve the process on remaining installations. Apart from these, all the quality management and control tools, such as the 7 basic quality tools, will be relevant to this process. The key output of this process is project documents updates to ensure that if there is any deviation from agreed standards, it is corrected. Also, if there are any lessons learned that can help improve the future projects, the organization process assets get updated. This quality assurance may result in improvement suggestions, change requests may be generated, and the project management plan may need to be updated. Understanding characteristics of quality assurance tools and techniques may be useful while answering the exam. So prepare this topic well before you take the exam. Next screen, let's discuss the last process of quality management. The key focus of the quality control activities is on the correctness of the work. Quality control helps answer questions like, is everything okay with the project? Does the project plan require changes to successfully execute the project? Will the project succeed? Etc. Let us look at the inputs to this process. The quality metrics measurements are done continuously to see whether the project quality is improving. The project deliverables are inspected against the planned checklists. Quality control acts upon the deliverables and work performance data produced in execution. It also refers to the project management plan for understanding deviations from the plan. It also considers the approved change requests, information from other project documents, and organizational process assets. There are 7 popular tools and techniques used in doing quality control activities. They are collectively known as 7 basic tools of quality. Other relevant tools are statistical sampling, inspection or testing, and review of the approved changes. Quality control activities result in quality control measurements, verifying deliverables, validated changes, information about work being performed, recommended changes, and updates to the organizational process assets, project management plan, and other project documents. In the next screen, let us look into a business scenario to understand this concept better. After reading the problem statement, click the solution button to look at possible answer. Six Sigma is a highly disciplined process that focuses on developing and delivering near-perfect products and services consistently. If a large volume of data is plotted over a period of time, you would most probably have a bell-shaped graph. Such graphs are also called normal distribution graph. It's called as normal distribution because any large volume of data is plotted with the intent to track variations would most probably be in a bell-shaped curve. The line corresponding to the top of the bell curve is the median of the data sample. Standard deviation concept is used to measure how far any data is from the mean. Standard deviation is also called sigma. One standard deviation from the mean covers 68% of the data. 6 sigma means 6 standard deviations from the mean. This would cover 99.99966% of the data. We will look at an example of 6 sigma in the following screen. To understand 6 sigma, let us look at an example. A tire manufacturing company produces 100,000 tires a day. It is not possible to verify each and every tire manually to ensure it is defect-free. Instead, random sample of these manufactured tires are taken and checked for defects. Assuming that the thickness of the tires is a parameter to measure defect, any tire that has a thickness more than or less than 10 millimeters is considered to be defective. Now, if you measure the actual thickness of all 100,000 tires manufactured daily and plot them on a graph, you get normal distribution graph. One standard deviation from the mean covers 68% of the data, meaning if the thickness of the 100,000 tires are plotted, 68,000 of them lie within one standard deviation above or below the mean. Now, if a company operates at 6 sigma level, they would ensure that all tires that are up to 6 standard deviations from the mean are defect-free. Therefore, in such cases, you can expect only 3 defective tires out of 1 million tires manufactured. Let us now check your understanding of the topics covered in this lesson. Here is a quick recap of what was covered in this lesson. A project is said to meet quality expectations when all the project requirements agreed in the beginning of the project are met and the resulting product is usable. Quality management includes creating and following policies and procedures that meet the project's defined quality needs. Quality planning defines the standards, templates, policies, and procedures. Quality assurance determines if the project is complying with the policies and procedures. Quality control measures specific project results against standards. Plan quality management, perform quality assurance, and control quality are the 3 project quality management processes. 7 basic quality tools are used to plan and achieve the desired levels of quality. At 6 sigma level, there would be only 3 defects out of 1 million units manufactured. In this lesson, we will focus on project management framework. Let us begin with the objectives of this lesson. After completing this lesson, you will be able to define project management, program management, and portfolio management. Recognize the roles of Project Management Office. Identify the project constraints and their impact on the project. Explain the role of a project manager in stakeholder management. Describe different organization structure. Differentiate between a project life cycle and a product life cycle. Let's begin this lesson with understanding what a project is in the next screen. A project is a temporary endeavor undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. For example, developing a new product, service, or result, constructing a building, industrial plant, or infrastructure, and implementing, improving, or enhancing existing business processes and procedures. In the next screen, we will focus on the characteristics of a project. A project can be distinguished based on its characteristics. The definition describes two characteristics of a project. First, it is temporary in nature. Temporary here does not mean short in duration. A project can extend for long duration based on the requirements. For example, creating a new indigenous missile defense system for a country. However, there is always a definite planned start and end date for a project. It cannot go on indefinitely. Secondly, the project is supposed to produce a unique output. The output could be a product, service, or result. There can be many common activities between two projects, but the outcome of each project should be unique in some way or the other. Now, let us look at what marks the end of a project. A project ends when either the objectives are met or the project is terminated because the objectives will not or cannot be met. The other reason to terminate the project can be that the need for the output of the project does not exist anymore. Usually, the sponsor of the project takes a call about the closure of the project. It is important to differentiate project work from regular operational work. For example, your office receptionist does the same work every day of picking any incoming call and directing the call to the right person in the office. This is an ongoing repetitive work and can be classified as operation. Operations, unlike projects, are neither temporary nor unique. Creating a new software system to effectively track your customer complaint can be an example of a project. When the software is successfully developed, the project objective is met, which marks the end of the project. When you start using this software to track customer complaints, you are entering into the operations phase. In the next screen, let us now look into project management. As defined in the PMBOK guide, project management is the application of knowledge, skills, and tools and techniques applied to project activities to meet the project requirements. Project management is achieved by proper application and integration of the 47 processes. Project application and integration means these processes should be executed in the right manner as well as in the right order. In the next screen, let us discuss how to manage a project. Program management is defined as the application of knowledge, skills, tools, and techniques to a program to meet the program requirements and to obtain benefits and control not available by managing project individually. As defined in PMBOK guide, a program is a group of related projects, which when managed as a group in a coordinated fashion, provides benefits and control that are not available while managing them individually. These benefits could be from decreased risk, economies of scale, improved management of dependencies, delivery of additional capabilities, optimal utilization of shared resources, and so on. Let us now learn the various features of program management. Random projects cannot be grouped together as a program. The projects in a program should be related in some way or the other, and there should be some value added in managing them together. A project may not be a part of any program, but a program will always have projects. A project can also be executed as a standalone project. A program is designed to deliver some strategic benefits value to the organization. These benefits can be tangible or intangible. Examples of tangible benefit could be increased profit margins or operational cost savings. Examples of intangible benefits could be improved team morale or building up certain competencies. While a project manager focuses relentlessly on the fulfillment of the project's requirements, that is, scope, cost, time, quality, a program manager needs to focus on ensuring that the organizational benefits are realized. In the next screen, let us understand what a portfolio is. Portfolio is yet another term used along with project and program. A portfolio may have multiple projects and programs that are managed as a group to achieve strategic objectives. Note that all projects and programs in a portfolio may not be necessarily interdependent or directly related. A portfolio can be created based on the business objectives. For example, an IT service company can have a portfolio named Japanese Projects, which is formed with an aim to take over the Japanese market by giving more attention to these projects. Within this portfolio, similar projects can be managed as a program, And all banking projects from Japan can be managed as a banking program. In the next screen, let us discuss portfolio management. Portfolio management is the centralized management of one or more portfolios. This includes identifying, prioritizing, authorizing, managing, and controlling projects, programs, and other related work to achieve strategic business objectives. Therefore, whether the company should have Japanese projects as portfolio or not is decided by portfolio management. In the next screen, let us understand the relationship between portfolios, programs, and projects. The image on the screen will help you to understand the terms portfolios, programs, and projects. A portfolio is part of an organization's overall strategy. It represents a conscious decision by an organization to invest in the portfolio. The overall objectives of a portfolio are then cascaded down to the lower-level components. The components could be sub-portfolios, programs, or projects. These components can further be broken down into smaller components for ease of management. Although a project may not contain operations, a program, or a portfolio, it can include other work. This other work may comprise training and development, customer support and services, etc. If the other work has synergy with the overall objectives and adds to the capability to deliver the higher level benefits, then it can be included in the program or portfolio as well. In the next screen, we will discuss Project Management Office. Project Management Office, or PMO, is a specific type of body or department within an organization. PMO performs several roles in the organization, and these can broadly be classified as primary roles and other roles. Typically, the PMO may take up any one or a combination of the three primary roles. It provides the policies, methodologies, and tools and templates for managing projects within the organization. It provides support and training in organization on how to manage projects. And finally, it provides project managers for different ongoing projects in the organization. PMO may also help in managing interdependencies between the projects, selecting, managing, and deploying shared or dedicated project resources, if need be, terminating a project, and organizing lessons learned sessions and maintaining the project management knowledge base for an organization. In the next screen, we will discuss how to manage the triple constraints. Any project can be done successfully if there is no constraint on time or there is unlimited budget available. Unfortunately, that is not true in real life. A project is performed within some constraint, and these constraints are usually competing. Therefore, if you change one, it would affect the other. For example, if the project duration increases, it would lead to increase in the project cost as well. Triple constraint is a term that originally referred to the three competing project constraints within which the projects are performed. These constraints are cost, time, and scope. Quality is a primary concern for a project manager. Therefore, the project manager has to make trade-offs to keep the scope, cost, time, quality plane in balance. To achieve the balance, the project manager also needs to manage other aspects of the project. For instance, the people, stakeholders, risks, communication, and procurements. The project manager plays the essential role of integrating all these different aspects of project management. In the PMP examination, you can expect business scenario-based questions focusing on the triple constraints. In the next screen, let us understand who a stakeholder is. A stakeholder can be defined as the one whose interests may positively or negatively be affected or perceived to be affected by the decision, activity, or outcome of the project. As per the definition, the project team, project manager, project sponsor, PMO office, customer, etc. are the stakeholders of the project. A project sponsor is the one who gives a go-ahead for a project and provides the necessary resources to execute the project. Therefore, the head of projects in the organization who provides a green signal to start a project and allocates required resources to the project is the project sponsor. A project sponsor is usually somebody placed high up in the organizational hierarchy of the performing organization, that is, the organization in which the work of the project is being carried out. In the next screen, let us look at stakeholder management. One of the key responsibilities of a project manager is to manage stakeholders. A project manager has to involve the stakeholders from the beginning of the project until the end, so they are aware of every step. A project manager has to take up specific activities for stakeholder management, identifying both internal and external stakeholders. Missing out any stakeholder can be disastrous for a project. A stakeholder who is identified toward the end of the project may come up with his own requirement at that stage, and incorporating them can be risky. Determining stakeholder requirements. After identifying all the stakeholders, the project manager also needs to ensure that their requirements are clearly identified. Sometimes, stakeholders might themselves not know of their requirement, and it is the job of the project manager to get them right by doing a proper stakeholder requirement analysis. Determining stakeholder expectations. Stakeholders might also have some unstated expectations, which need to be clarified to see if it can become a project requirement. It is again the role of the project manager to determine the stakeholder's expectation. Communicating with stakeholders. Once all the stated and unstated stakeholder requirements are known, the project manager, as part of stakeholder analysis, should focus on communicating them regularly to keep stakeholders involved in the project. Once you understand the practices of stakeholder management, it will be easier for you to answer scenario-based questions in the examination. In the next screen, let us look at the various organization structure. Projects are performed in an organization, and the functioning of the organization might affect the project. The different organization structure types explained here are based on the level of authority that a project manager gets into in those organizations. In a functional type of organization, the organization is grouped by the area of specialization within different functional areas. For instance, marketing, accounting, engineering, etc. are departments within the organization. Each employee typically reports to a functional manager. In such types of organization, normally projects are undertaken within the department itself. If a project requires any assistance from another department, the request moves from the head of the requesting department to the head of the concerned department. The team members do their normal departmental work in addition to the project work. The next type of organization is projectized organization. In such organizations, there are no departments. The organization's resources mostly work on projects. Team members report to a project manager. The project manager has complete control over the resources. When the project is completed, either they move on to another project or they look for some job outside the company. They do not have a department for themselves. The third type of organization is a matrix organization, which is a blend of functional and projectized organizational structure. A team member belongs to a department as well as they are part of a project team. In such organization, team members have two bosses, one, their department head, and the second, their project manager. Since there are two bosses here, this type of organization is further classified into three different types. They are weak, strong, and balanced matrix organization. So out of the two bosses that team members have in matrix organization, if the project manager has more authority over the team member, such organizations are called strong matrix. Where the functional manager has more authority, it's a weak matrix organization. If they both share equal authority, then it is a balanced organization. There is another term that you might find in the exam called type matrix. This generally refers to a co-located team, that is, a team that has been placed in the same location to enhance their performance. In the PMP exam, if there is no mention of the organization type, you can assume it to be a matrix organization. Let us look at each of these organization structures in detail. In the next screen, let us look at functional organization. In a functional organization, the resources of the organization are grouped by functions, sometimes called departments. Examples of functions could be sales, finance, administration, manufacturing, etc. Each function plays a definite role in the organization and is headed by a functional head or supervisor. All the resources in such an organization report directly into their functions. Therefore, a salesperson would report into the sales organizational hierarchy, a purchase executive would report into procurement, and so on. You would notice that in a functional organization, the project manager's role is not explicitly called out. When a functional organization embarks on a project, each of the functions that are involved may volunteer some resources to work on the project. One of these resources may end up playing the project manager's role. The resource assignments may not even be full-time, and sometimes even the project manager is part-time. Since the project manager has no authority over any of the resources, they are dependent on the functional heads. This makes it more challenging for the project manager to coordinate in the team. However, functional organizations provide an opportunity for specialization. For example, if a purchase executive was reporting into the purchase department, that executive would have exposure to all the purchasing that happens within the organization and has a well-defined career path. In functional organizations, project management happens at the functional head level. Next, let us look at the projectized organization in the next screen. The projectized organization has all the resources aligned around projects. The project managers have complete control over the resources working on their projects. The biggest advantage of the projectized organization is that the resources have loyalty to their projects and project execution becomes easier. This kind of structure is suitable for organizations whose work is in the nature of projects. There are few disadvantages in this structure as well. Firstly, the role of the resource is over once the project is completed. Secondly, highly specialized roles within a project may not be fully occupied all the time. For example, a purchase executive may have work for selected periods on a project while purchase activities are going on. However, for the rest of the period, their capability may not be optimally utilized. There is less scope for functional specialization as the project boundaries limit the kind of work for the resources. Each project manager is in charge of a project and its resources. Next, let us look at the matrix organization. In a matrix organization, the resources report to the functional managers and are managed by the project managers as well. There might even be a function that represents all the project managers in the organization, which provides project management expertise. The matrix structure has three variants, commonly referred to as weak, balanced, and strong. In a weak matrix, the authority of the project manager is the weakest and strongest in a strong matrix structure. The titles given to project managers in functional or weak matrix organizations are project expediter or project coordinator. They would be called project managers in a balanced or strong matrix structure and have slightly more authority over the time of the team members. The advantage of the matrix structure is that resources can be optimally utilized while preserving the capacity of the project managers to get projects executed efficiently. Resources can specialize in their functions and have stability in their careers, also contribute to the projects at the same time potentially. The disadvantage of matrix organization is that the communication overhead increases significantly. This is because every resource in the organization belongs into a project and into a function, leading to a dual reporting structure. In a matrix organization, project management happens at project resource level. In the next screen, let us summarize the advantages and disadvantages of different organizational structures. Each organization structure has its own set of advantages and disadvantages. The advantage of functional organizations is that resources may find clearly defined career paths and achieve specialization and skill development in their respective fields. It will be a flexible workforce since only one manager will be responsible, avoiding confusion. The disadvantage of such organization type is that project work is hampered. Department work is always given higher priority than the project work. In addition, there is no career path in project management, which leads to lower interest in projects. In the case of the projectized organization, one of the clear advantages is better communication within the projects. Since project work is the only work team members are doing, it also leads to loyalty towards the project goals. The disadvantage of such organization type is the inefficient use of resources, because every project team has their own support function. Therefore, this might lead to the duplication of effort. It also leads to the resources being left with no work, since their roles are over once the project is completed. It also hampers skill development, because the project requirements dictate what kind of work team members perform at different stages on a project. Now, let us look at the matrix organization. It also has the advantage of better coordination and maximum utilization of resources. However, the disadvantage is the higher potential for conflict among the managers, which might lead to communication complexity and overhead management. In the next screen, let us focus on the comparison on project lifecycle and product lifecycle. Project lifecycle spans the initiation of a project until the closure of the project. The product lifecycle, on the other hand, also encompasses the operational and maintenance phases. A typical product lifecycle starts with conception of the product and goes until its withdrawal from the market. The withdrawal might be because it becomes obsolete, or there is no further need for the product in the market. A product has a long life cycle. A product can require or spawn many projects over its life. For example, a project in product conception phase could be to determine customer needs, whereas a project during product maturity phase could be used to perform competitive analysis. Typically, a product lifecycle is longer than the project lifecycle. A project also has its own life cycle, and this life cycle depends upon the industry and the organization within which the project is being executed. Sometimes different organizations within the same industry use different life cycles. There can be questions in the exam based on the comparison of project life cycle and product life cycle, so understanding the differences will be useful in answering such questions. In the next screen, let us discuss more on project life cycle. A life cycle is composed of phases. Each phase represents a discrete unit of work required to be done on the project. There are different ways of classifying project life cycles. Let us first discuss the sequential versus overlapping life cycle. In sequential phases, the subsequent phase starts only after the previous phase has been completed, whereas in overlapping phases, 2 or more phases may run in parallel for some time. This could help fast-tracking and compressing the amount of time required. The other way of classifying life cycles is how they go about the process of planning. In predictive life cycles, there is a large upfront planning phase, where all the details of scope, cost, time are planned before beginning the subsequent phases. These phases then are executed in either sequential or overlapping modes. They are suitable for large projects where all the requirements are likely to be known in advance and where upfront planning effort is required to get the necessary approvals. Another feature of predictive life cycles is that each phase may potentially be different in the nature of activities and may require people with different skill sets. For example, traditional software development life cycle has phases like requirements, feasibility, planning, design, construction, testing, and transition. We will continue project life cycles in the next screen. Incremental and iterative life cycles have a short upfront high-level definition and planning phase. The product is then developed through a series of iterations, where iteration increments or adds to the functionality by a little. All the activities are intentionally repeated in iterations. Adaptive or agile life cycles are variants of incremental and iterative life cycles where iteration is very short, typically 2 to 4 weeks. Agile methodologies are becoming very popular in the software development industry and in other industries where the requirements are highly changeable and frequent feedback is beneficial. Let us now check your understanding of the topics covered in this lesson. Here is a quick recap of what was covered in this lesson. Project management is the application of knowledge, skills, and tools and techniques applied to project activities to meet the project requirements. PMO provides the policies, methodologies, and tools and templates for managing projects within the organization. Project manager has to integrate various project aspects, like the people, stakeholders, risks, communication, and procurements with the project constraints, time, scope, cost, and quality. Identifying internal and external stakeholders, determining their requirements, and communicating with them regularly is an important role of a project manager. Functional, projectized, and matrix are the 3 types of organization structures based on the level of authority given to the project manager. Project lifecycle spans the initiation of a project until the closure, while product lifecycle also encompasses the operational and maintenance phases.
If getting your learning started is half the battle, what if you could do that for free? Visit SkillUp by Simplilearn. Click on the link in the description to know more.
In this lesson, we will focus on project communications management. Let us begin with the objectives of this lesson. After completing this lesson, you will be able to define communication and project communications management, identify the different communication methods, technology, and channels, explain the elements of a basic communication model, describe the project communications management processes. In the next screen, let us take a quick look at the project management process map. There are 47 processes in project management grouped into 10 knowledge areas and mapped into 5 process groups. In this lesson, we will look at the 7th knowledge area, that is, project communications management and its processes. In the next screen, let us understand communication. Communication can be best defined as a two-way process of exchanging information between 2 entities. As you can see on the screen, if project is an entity, the project needs to communicate with other entities in the organization, like project managers, senior management of the organization, and any other stakeholder of the project. Similarly, these entities may also have to communicate with the projects. The communication between project and the stakeholders is always two-sided. Project manager is responsible for ensuring proper communication to and from the project. In fact, a project manager spends almost 90% of his or her time on communication. You can now understand how important it is for a project manager to plan this activity well. In the next screen, let us discuss communication methods. Communication can be done in 2 ways. It can be done written or verbal. Both written as well as verbal communication can either be formal or informal. Formal means communicating by following some basic rules, whereas informal means taking a casual approach. These 2 combinations result in 4 different communication methods. They are formal written, formal verbal, informal written, and informal verbal. Formal written method is used for project management plans, project charter, and over long-distance communication. Formal verbal method is used during presentations, whereas informal written method is applicable while writing notes or emails. Informal verbal, on the other hand, is applied during conversations. You can expect questions in the PMP exam which require choosing a communication method for a given situation, so a fair understanding of the communication methods can help you score higher. In the next screen,